A soft ripple of thought stirs the edges of the mind. You blink and wake up, feeling the familiar weight of your body, the texture of the sheets against your skin. Your senses are full of the world, vivid and alive. But then something strange lingers in the background. How do you know you're awake? How can you be sure that this moment isn't just another layer of the dream, drifting just beyond the reach of your conscious grasp? This is the shadow that hangs over Descartes' dream argument, a puzzle of perception that dances between the waking and the unreal. Descartes asked the simplest question, the most dangerous question: how can we trust our senses? How do we know that what we see, hear, touch, and taste isn't a mere illusion woven by some unseen hand? The dream itself becomes the template for all our uncertainty, a reflection of the doubts we can't escape. He paints the picture in a dream. Everything feels real, every sound, every detail, every sensation. The world unfolds before you with complete certainty. But when you wake, you realize the dream was just that, a fleeting mirage, vanishing when you open your eyes. But in that moment, was it any less real? Could it be that our waking life is the same? A dream we've yet to wake from, a world we believe in simply because we've never questioned it. Descartes didn't offer answers. Instead, he let the question hang, like a mist over the landscape of the mind. We live with the certainty of what we perceive, but can we truly say we know it? Each morning, we rise from what feels like a real world, yet we've only just left behind a different reality, the one we built in sleep. So how do we know this world is any different from the one in which we slumber? The mind, trapped in its own perceptions, can never be fully sure. In a dream, we follow the narrative, we see the people we know, we feel emotions as though they are real. And when we wake, we realize the fabric was woven by our own minds, untangled in the light of day. But is it any different when we wake up in this life? What if this too is a narrative we follow, simply too deeply entwined to recognize? Descartes suggested that a powerful being might be at work, tricking us into this false sense of reality, weaving a world that appears solid but is in fact a phantom. What if we were nothing more than the dream of a higher mind, walking through this world unaware of its artifice? If a dream is indistinguishable from waking life, how do we measure what is real? And yet, even as we consider the possibility, something resists, a flicker of clarity, a quiet understanding, a pulse of experience that feels rooted in something deeper than mere illusion. For all the doubts Descartes cast upon the world, there's an undeniable pull, an anchoring in the sensation of being alive, of moving through time, of touching the ground beneath our feet. But then, as if to erase all certainty, the dream comes again. It lingers, a soft whisper at the edge of your awareness. When the lines between waking and dreaming blur, you must ask, is there a boundary at all? Are we simply drifting from one state of consciousness to another, with nothing more than a fragile thread holding it all together? What if the key is in the experience itself? What if waking life isn't separate from dream life, but merely another layer, another version of the same truth? A dream within a dream, woven into the fabric of the universe. What we call waking may just be another dream that has yet to end. Descartes, with his razor-sharp skepticism, wanted to dig into the heart of doubt, to strip away the layers until only the most certain truth remained. But what if he was chasing shadows, unable to see the whole of the experience? What if the dream, the waking world, and the self are not separate at all, but merely different ways of perceiving the same underlying reality? The mind seeks to understand. It seeks to categorize, to classify, to create boundaries. But sometimes, boundaries slip away, and what once felt certain becomes an open question. Maybe the paradox of the dream argument is not just about whether we're dreaming or awake, it's about the nature of knowing itself. Are you awake now, or are you still drifting, still caught in the shifting patterns of your own mind, reaching for something solid that is never quite there? Descartes told us to doubt everything, to strip the world down to its essence. But in doing so, he may have left us with only more questions, not answers. Still, there is something profound in this uncertainty, something that calls to us in the quiet moments between sleep and waking. The borderless expanse of possibility, where every certainty dissolves and the mind floats freely. And so, the cycle continues as we move through our waking hours, no less unsure than we were in the dream. There is no clear line between what is real and what is imagined. The mind, suspended in this space, continues to search for clarity, never fully finding it, always dancing on the edge of the unknown. But perhaps that is where the answer lies, not in the certainty of waking, but in the gentle unfolding of thought itself. As the day passes, as the night draws near, the boundary remains unclear, the dream never fully over. And still, we move forward. There is a moment in the quiet of the mind where a fleeting image dances before your eyes. A butterfly, delicate and free, flutters through a field. The wind is gentle, the air warm, and for a moment, the world is complete. But then, it vanishes, and with it, the certainty of what came before. Zhuangzi, an ancient philosopher, once pondered this fleeting moment with a question that ripples through time. If you dream of being a butterfly and then wake to find yourself human, who is to say which is the dream? Is the butterfly's life any less real than the waking world you know? He asked, what if you are both the dreamer and the dream? What if there is no clear boundary between the two? The butterfly, so vivid in its freedom, exists fully in the world of dreams. But it is no less real than the waking you, caught in a body and bound by time. In that stillness, where sleep meets consciousness, Zhuangzi's paradox unfolds. It is not just about who you are when you wake up, but who you are when you sleep. The two worlds, dream and waking, are not separate at all, but intimately entwined, like two threads in the same fabric. Is the butterfly's dance any less meaningful for its fragility? Does its flight lose its beauty simply because it fades into the mist of sleep? And when you wake, do you not return to your own dance, moving through the world with the same grace, the same impermanence? The dreamer is lost in the dream, moving through it as though it were reality. But in the moment of awakening, does the dreamer then lose themselves in the waking world, as if it too were a dream, slipping between the folds of time and self? Zhuangzi invites us into this paradox, where the lines blur, where what we call real and what we call imagined can no longer be separated. And in that space, he asks us to consider the nature of existence itself. What is the self, if not the product of its own perception, suspended between worlds? Perhaps, he suggests, we are all like the butterfly, caught between dreams, caught between moments. Each world, real in its own right, yet impermanent, shifting with the rhythm of thought. You are here, and then you are not. You are both the dreamer and the dream. But there is no answer, only the soft unfolding of the question itself. And perhaps that is where the beauty lies, not in the certainty of what is real, but in the gentle uncertainty that allows both dreams and waking to exist side by side, intertwined, like two breaths in the same expanse. Zhuangzi's butterfly dream is a reminder that perception, in all its forms, is fragile. It shifts with each passing moment, never the same, never fixed. The world you see now may dissolve with the next breath, only to reveal something else, something equally true, equally fleeting. The butterfly does not question its own flight. It simply moves with the wind, caught in the moment, unaware of the distinction between its dreams and its waking. It is free, because it does not seek to separate itself from the world it inhabits. Perhaps we too might learn to move like this, without resistance, without the need for answers. And so the dreamer and the butterfly remain in their dance, forever intertwined in the fabric of reality. The mind moves through the world as both dreamer and dream, shifting between states of being, never fully awake, never fully asleep, and in that, there is a quiet peace. Zhuangzi's paradox does not demand resolution. It simply asks us to live within the question, to explore the spaces between what is and what might be. To recognize that the dream is not something we leave behind when we wake, but something that continues to shape us, to move us, as we move through the waking world. There is no line to cross, no final answer to find. Only the gentle unfolding of the mind, like the wings of a butterfly, unfolding without thought, without expectation, in the quiet spaces between sleep and waking. And in that moment, between the flutter of wings and the beating of hearts, perhaps we can find a deeper understanding. Not in the certainty of waking or the clarity of dreams, but in the openness between them, where all things are possible. For who is to say whether the butterfly dreams of being a human or the human dreams of being a butterfly? Each world is as real as the other, each one part of a larger whole, suspended in time, and all that remains is the dance. A spark of light, the hum of a machine. Your senses flicker into being, and suddenly you find yourself awake in a world so familiar, so tangible. Yet what if this world, this body, these sensations are nothing more than the projections of something far away, distant, and unseen? Imagine for a moment that your brain is no longer nestled safely within your skull. It floats in a vat, suspended in liquid, connected to a vast system of wires and electrodes. You are nothing but a collection of impulses, the brain a silent observer, receiving signals, interpreting them as if they were reality. The world you experience, how real is it? This is the brain in a vat, a thought experiment that stretches the limits of what we believe to be true. Could it be that all of your experiences, your thoughts, your sensations, are mere simulations fed into your mind by an external force? The taste of water, the feeling of a breeze, the sound of a distant bell, what if they are nothing more than carefully crafted illusions? For your entire life, you have lived within this construct. You feel pain, you know joy, you encounter the world as if it were real. But how can you be sure? How can you prove that the world outside your mind exists and is not just a projection of some unseen operator, a flicker in the vat of your consciousness? The thought is both unsettling and fascinating. If your brain is in a vat, everything you perceive is a trick. The sky, the stars, the people you know, are they all just whispers in the fabric of your mind? A simulation, perfectly crafted, leaving you to wonder whether you have ever truly left the confines of your own thoughts. And yet, as you consider it, there is something deeply unsettling about the very nature of the question. If you cannot trust your senses, what can you trust? Your perception of reality, the foundation of all you know, becomes suddenly suspect. How do you separate the real from the imagined, the authentic from the contrived? Perhaps you reach for the simplest answer: what you feel, what you experience, is real because it is real to you. But then even that is cast into doubt. If your mind is isolated, if everything you perceive is merely a simulation, then what is the nature of your own self? Who are you in a world of illusions, where even your thoughts might not be your own? You begin to wonder if your thoughts are mere electrical signals manipulated by a machine. Is there any difference between your waking life and the dream you once had? Could the lines between dream and reality blur even further until they become indistinguishable? How much of what you experience is truly yours, and how much is simply fed to you by unseen hands? The brain in a vat is not just a riddle of perception, it is a riddle of existence. What does it mean to be? What is the essence of consciousness if it is not grounded in a world outside itself? And if the world you know is nothing but a construct, what is the nature of the self within it? And yet, there is a subtle, quiet resistance within you. The brain, though suspended and isolated, is still capable of experiencing. The feeling of warmth, the sound of a voice, these experiences are real to the mind, even if they are not real in the way we usually think. What does this say about the nature of experience itself? In some ways, the question of the brain in a vat is less about proving whether the world exists and more about understanding how we understand the world. If the mind can create a reality so vivid, so complete, from nothing but electrical impulses, then what does it mean to be truly awake? Is the world ever truly outside of us, or is it always in some way within? Perhaps in the end it is not about proving whether the world is real. It is about accepting the possibility that all of it, the world, the self, the very fabric of experience, might be far more fluid than we ever realized. What does it mean to exist in a world that could at any moment reveal itself to be a mere construct? The brain in a vat pulls at the very foundation of certainty. If the self is not rooted in a world outside the mind, what does that say about the relationship between perception and reality? Can reality ever be trusted, or is it always just a shadow cast by something deeper, something unseen? And as the thoughts continue to unravel, the lines between the real and the imagined become less clear. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the brain in a vat is not the question itself, but the space it opens, where we too become reflections of our own minds, forever searching for the boundaries between what is and what might be. You sit with this thought as the hum of the machine fades, and wonder if all of this world, this moment, is a simulation. Who then is the dreamer? And if it is you, who then are you? There are moments in your life when everything feels so real, so grounded, that you cannot imagine anything outside of this world. The weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of the sun on your face, everything seems as it should be. And yet, what if all of it is a simulation? What if the reality you experience is nothing more than a projection, an illusion cast by a force far beyond your understanding? This is the matrix hypothesis. Imagine that you, along with everyone and everything around you, are nothing but digital constructs, living in a world designed by a higher intelligence. Your every thought, every sensation, every memory is fed to you through a vast system of networks and algorithms, existing solely to create a perfect illusion of reality. In this thought experiment, there is no clear way to prove that the world around you is real. It feels real. It looks real. But that might be the very nature of the trick. The Matrix is a world built on deception, designed to be so convincing that even the smallest doubt never surfaces. The boundaries between waking and dreaming blur until there is no distinction at all. What if the technology required to create such a world already exists, just beyond the horizon of our understanding? What if the minds of countless individuals, preserved and placed in vats or computers, are living in a digital dream, unaware of the existence of anything outside the confines of the simulated reality they experience? Could this be our fate as well? The Matrix hypothesis challenges the very foundation of our existence. If everything we see, touch, and feel is nothing but data, then what is real? Can we trust our senses, or are they merely channels for a deeper deception? What does it mean to be alive, to experience, if the world around us is fabricated and manipulated, designed to keep us unaware of the truth? There is a subtle terror in the idea that we could be living inside a simulation. If we are not in control of the world we experience, if our perceptions are carefully shaped by an unseen force, then who are we? Who is the one who pulls the strings, creating the illusion of a universe, of time, of change? Perhaps the deepest question posed by the Matrix hypothesis is not whether we are living in a simulation, but whether we can ever know for certain. If our reality is entirely constructed, then how can we ever escape the illusion? How can we break free of the simulation if we are trapped within it, unable to perceive anything beyond the parameters of the world it presents? And yet, despite the uncertainty and the fear, something within you resists. You cannot shake the feeling that there is something more, something beyond the confines of this simulated world. In the deepest corners of your mind, there is a whisper, a sense of awareness that you are not simply a passive participant in this reality, but something more, something aware of the illusion. Even within the constraints of the Matrix, there are glimpses of truth, moments when the simulation falters, when the boundaries between the real and the unreal begin to dissolve. Perhaps these moments, fleeting as they are the key to understanding the world you inhabit. They may be the cracks in the simulation, the gaps in the illusion, where something real begins to seep through. The Matrix hypothesis forces us to confront the fragility of reality itself. If everything we know, everything we hold dear could be fabricated, then what is left to trust? Is there a point at which we must let go of our attachment to the world as we know it, and accept that what we experience is but a shadow, a reflection of something far greater and far more mysterious? And yet, in the quiet moments, when the noise of the world fades away, you might feel it, the flicker of something else. Perhaps the Matrix is not just a digital construct, but a metaphor for the nature of perception itself. Maybe the true illusion is not the world around us, but our belief that we can fully comprehend it, that we can ever see it for what it truly is. In some ways, the matrix hypothesis asks us to reconsider our own limitations. If we are indeed trapped in a world of illusion, then our only means of breaking free is to transcend the very perception that keeps us bound. To see the world not as it is, but as it could be. To question everything, to doubt everything, and in doing so, to step outside the illusion and into something unknown. But even as you ponder these questions, the world around you continues on. The matrix, if it exists, is seamless, flawless. It bends to your perception, folding itself into your every thought, your every experience. There is no escaping it. Or perhaps there is no need to. Maybe the world as it is, no matter how fabricated, is enough. An endless dance of illusion and truth, moving together in perfect harmony. The matrix is both a nightmare and a possibility. It shows us the fragility of our own perceptions, the ease with which our senses can be fooled. And yet it also offers a glimpse of something deeper, a question that reaches into the core of what it means to be human, to experience, to exist. If we are living in a simulation, perhaps the most profound realization is not the discovery of the illusion, but the awareness of it. So, as you sit with this thought, let it flow, gentle and unhurried. The world around you may be an illusion, it may be a simulation, but within that world, within that space, something real exists, an awareness, a consciousness, a question that moves through time and space, searching for the truth. There is a moment, delicate and rare, when the fog of sleep lifts just enough for clarity to seep through. It is as if the veil between the dream and the waking world trembles, revealing an in-between space where the rules are yours to bend. You are both dreamer and creator, moving through a landscape of infinite possibility. Lucid dreaming, this strange, wondrous experience, gives you the gift of agency within the dream itself. In that moment, you realize that you are not just a passive observer, but an active participant, shaping the world around you with the subtle command of your will. The dream, once uncontrollable, becomes yours to command, but there is something quietly unsettling about this power. In the world of dreams, everything is fluid, malleable. The laws of physics do not apply. Time bends and warps, and the very fabric of reality is woven from the threads of your subconscious mind. You move through this space like a creator, yet you are still within it, bound by the very rules you wish to alter. What does it mean to have agency in a space where everything is born from your own mind? Does it truly offer freedom, or does it reveal the limits of that freedom? In the waking world, agency is defined by the boundaries of physical laws, social contracts, and moral structures. But in a lucid dream, where these boundaries dissolve, what does freedom become? In the dream, you can fly, shape-shift, visit distant lands, or explore the deepest recesses of your own mind. Yet, as you glide through this world, you must ask, how much of this freedom is illusion? Are you free to do anything? Or are you simply playing within a framework created by your own unconscious desires? As you stretch the limits of the dream, you may feel the tug of something deeper, a realization that even in this boundless world, you are still constrained by the nature of your own mind. The characters you encounter, the landscapes you traverse, are all reflections of your inner self, shaped by thoughts, emotions, and memories. They are not separate from you, but part of the same vast web of consciousness. The more you control, the more you realize how much control still eludes you. You may try to change the direction of a dream, to conjure something impossible, only to find that the dream fights back, or that your desires slip through your fingers like sand. In the space of lucid dreaming, even agency is subject to the mind's deeper workings. There is a curious paradox here. When you gain control over the dream, you also become aware of the limitations of that control. You are free to shape the world, but only within the confines of what your mind can imagine. The dream becomes a mirror, reflecting not just your desires, but your own sense of powerlessness, your uncertainty, your deepest fears. What is it then that separates lucid dreaming from waking life? In both states we are agents of our experience, yet in one, we are bound by the physical world, while in the other, we are free to shape and reshape reality at will. And yet, even in the waking world, is it not true that we too are influenced, shaped by forces beyond our immediate control, by the body, by society, by the unseen currents of time and fate? Lucid dreaming offers a glimpse into the nature of agency itself. In this space, you realize that power and freedom are not simply the ability to act, but the awareness of the forces that shape your actions. It is an invitation to reflect on how we move through the world, whether we are truly free or whether our actions are simply a dance with forces beyond our understanding. The experience of lucid dreaming also raises the question of what it means to be fully conscious. In the dream, you are aware of yourself, aware of your ability to shape the world, and yet there is a sense of separation between you and the dream itself. You are both inside and outside of it, a participant and an observer, at once, and this raises the question of waking life. If you can be so aware of yourself within the dream, what does it mean to be truly awake? Are we ever fully awake, or are we always, in some sense, dreaming? Just as the lucid dreamer shapes the dream, do we not too shape our waking reality with our thoughts, our beliefs, our perceptions? In a lucid dream, the world is born from the mind, shaped by the power of awareness. In the waking world, the same could be said. We move through life, shaping our experience with the choices we make, with the thoughts we entertain, with the way we engage with the world. Perhaps the boundary between the two worlds is not as sharp as we imagine. So what is the nature of agency? What is it that allows us to shape our worlds, both in dreams and in waking life? Perhaps it is not simply the power to act, but the awareness of our own powerlessness within the flow of existence, the recognition that we are both creators and creations, simultaneously shaping and being shaped. In the quiet space between sleep and waking, between dream and reality, there is a moment of reflection. A moment when you can ask yourself, how much of my life is a lucid dream? How much of it is shaped by my own awareness, and how much is simply unfolding beyond my control? And in that moment, the boundary between waking and dreaming, between agency and surrender, dissolves just a little more. There are moments when waking up feels like stepping into a strange mirrored world, a world that echoes your own, but something is off. The light is too soft, the sounds too distant, and the motions of the day unfold in slow, deliberate rhythms. You rise, you stretch, and yet something nags at the edge of your mind. You go through the motions of your day, preparing for the routine, but with each step you are struck by the feeling that you've already done this. You've already woken up, you've already brushed your teeth, you've already walked through these hallways, but the feeling deepens. There is a quiet unease. This is the false awakening loop, when waking becomes a dream, and the dream wraps itself back into the waking world, looping you endlessly in an uncanny cycle of awareness and illusion. You think you've awoken, but you have not. And as you move through the loop, you wonder, how do you know when you're truly awake? Each moment in the false awakening feels as if you're stepping through familiar spaces, your room, your home, the world outside, but the details are distorted, like reflections in a funhouse mirror. The light has a strange quality, the air a different texture. There is a sense of repetition, an overwhelming familiarity, but also a quiet shift in the rhythm of time itself. The world moves in slow motion, like you are submerged beneath water, or caught in a dream that lingers just long enough to unsettle you. The more you try to snap free, the tighter the loop becomes, pulling you back into the cycle of waking and sleeping, the boundaries between them blurring like fog before the sun. And so you wake again, convinced this is the true awakening, only to discover that you are still trapped. This world too feels like a dream. You move through it, but each action feels like it has already been taken, each step an echo of the one before. There is no escape. You begin to question the very nature of your experience. If waking is just another form of dreaming, how can you trust anything at all? This loop, so simple, yet so profound, brings with it a quiet terror. The feeling of being stuck, unable to break free, echoes deep within your consciousness. And yet there is something deeply compelling about the experience as well. The mind, caught in this inescapable loop, begins to wonder, if I am not truly awake, what am I? What is the nature of the self in this dreamlike state? In the false awakening, the very idea of time fractures. The dream and the waking world twist around each other like threads in a weave, and you begin to lose track of where one begins and the other ends. The dream world grows more real, and the waking world becomes more like a dream. Where does one reality bleed into the other? The false awakening loop also raises the question of control. In a dream you are not in control. You are swept along by the current of the narrative, powerless to change its course. But in the false awakening, you know that you should be awake. You should be in control. And yet you are not. You are caught in a system of repeating cycles, with no clear way to break free. As you move through the loop, you start to wonder, what if this is what waking life truly is? What if every day is a dream, a reflection of something deeper, something we cannot yet comprehend? Perhaps, just as in the false awakening, the world around us is an illusion, a projection of the mind itself. It's a quiet thought, a whisper at the back of the mind, that grows louder the longer you are trapped in the loop. The idea that waking up may never be the escape you think it is, that perhaps the dream you experience each night is as real as the world you walk through by day. In this endless cycle, where are the boundaries? And so with each turn of the loop, you are left with the question, if I wake up and I am still dreaming, how can I ever be sure of what is real? The false awakening breaks down the walls of perception, allowing no clear line between dream and waking, no place where one reality ends and the other begins. There is no escaping the loop, there is only the awareness of it. Perhaps the only way to truly awaken is to let go of the need to know whether you are awake or asleep. In the loop, the only constant is the act of moving through it, of feeling the edges of reality slip and slide like water through your fingers. Maybe the false awakening is not a trap, but a lesson, a reminder that the boundaries we create between what is real and what is imagined are not as fixed as we believe. The mind, in its desire to separate the dream from the waking world, becomes entangled in its own creations. And in that entanglement, the true nature of reality becomes elusive, just out of reach. Each time you wake, you are still caught in the dream, still dancing along the edge of reality. The boundary is not something to cross, but something to explore. Perhaps, in the quiet space between sleep and waking, there is no need for an answer. Perhaps the loop, endless as it may seem, is a reflection of the complexity of consciousness itself. In the space between one moment and the next, there is always room for wonder, always space for the question, what if waking is just another dream? There is a moment, a flicker in the corner of your mind, when something doesn't quite make sense. A glitch, a misstep, an unexpected shift. It's as if the world you know, the one you move through so confidently, is suddenly not as solid as it seems. A quiet thought creeps in. What if this world is not real at all? This is the essence of the simulation hypothesis, a thought experiment that challenges everything you know about existence. What if instead of living in a natural world, you are actually a program, a set of data points, a series of inputs and outputs within a vast computational system? What if this reality, this life, is nothing more than a simulation? The idea is unsettling. In a simulation, nothing is truly real. Every color, every sound, every object you touch, every person you encounter could simply be an illusion, a carefully crafted facade designed to look and feel as real as the world outside the simulation. The sensations, the experiences, all of it, part of a program running on a distant machine. If the simulation hypothesis is true, then reality as we know it is not what we think it is. The familiar laws of physics, the rhythms of time, the structure of the universe, could they be nothing more than coded instructions, written by an intelligence far beyond our comprehension? And if so, what does that say about the nature of existence? Imagine the implications. If our entire world is a simulation, who or what is running it? Are we creations within a vast experiment, or simply the product of a far-off civilization, playing out their own version of reality, unaware that we are part of a larger design? The mind struggles to grasp it. Could we truly be so small, so contained within a system we cannot even perceive? The more you contemplate this, the more unsettling it becomes. If everything you know is a simulation, then the question arises, who is the creator? Is it another form of intelligence, one so advanced it can craft entire worlds with the flick of a key, or perhaps an even more terrifying possibility? Are we nothing more than a byproduct of an algorithmic process created for reasons we cannot understand? What if the simulation runs on a scale so vast that every choice you make, every moment you experience, is part of an intricate design? What if your very sense of self, your awareness, your consciousness, is an illusion created by the system itself? Are we simply characters in a game, following a script written by a designer whose motives are beyond our comprehension? There is a quiet elegance to the idea, yet a deep disorienting emptiness as well. If we are in a simulation, does anything truly matter? The choices we make, the paths we walk, the things we desire, are they real, or are they merely a series of responses generated by the program? Does free will exist within this construct, or are we merely following an invisible trail laid out for us? And yet, there is something profoundly human in the way we react to this idea. The thought of being part of a simulation brings with it a strange paradox. The more we recognize that everything could be simulated, the more real it all seems. The colors we see, the emotions we feel, the connections we make, these experiences resonate deeply within us, regardless of whether they are real in the traditional sense. The simulation hypothesis challenges the very foundations of what we believe to be true. If everything around us, from the stars above to the ground beneath our feet, is an illusion, then what is the nature of truth itself? Are we capable of understanding what is real, or are we forever trapped in a cycle of false perceptions? This idea, so simple in its concept, opens up a cascade of questions about existence, consciousness, and the nature of reality. If we are in a simulation, do we cease to be real, or does our awareness, our ability to question and reflect, give us a kind of reality that transcends the simulation itself? In the end, is it the awareness of the simulation that makes it real? If the simulation is running, and we are part of it, does it matter if we know the truth? Does it change anything about the lives we live, the people we love, the experiences we gather? Perhaps the simulation itself does not depend on our knowledge of it. It simply unfolds, like a story told over and over again, each iteration a perfect reflection of the last. But the question remains, what is the purpose of the simulation? Is it an experiment, a creation of art, a means of understanding the nature of consciousness? Or is it something darker, something beyond our understanding, a reality created and maintained for reasons we cannot grasp? The more you ponder it, the deeper the rabbit hole seems to go. If we are living in a simulation, the rules of reality, as we understand them, no longer apply. Everything we know could be false, an illusion woven into the fabric of our perceptions. And yet, in this space, there is something undeniably real, the awareness that we are questioning it. Perhaps the only certainty in a simulated world is the awareness of the question itself. And in that awareness, the boundary between the real and the simulated begins to blur, leaving us with only the experience of being, the recognition that we are thinking, perceiving, questioning. Perhaps that in itself is enough. What does it mean to live in a simulation? Perhaps it means nothing more than to live, aware, conscious, and experiencing a reality that, for all its illusory nature, feels deeply, profoundly real. And in that reality, we find the quiet space between dream and waking, between truth and illusion, where the question lingers, unanswered. There is a moment when the line between the real and the imagined begins to blur. A slight shift, a crack in the fabric of what you know. You put on a headset, and suddenly the world around you shifts, dissolves, and reformulates. You step into a new reality, one designed by codes and algorithms, and for a moment, the old world disappears. Virtual reality offers an experience so vivid, so detailed, that it becomes almost indistinguishable from the world outside. You touch, you see, you feel, everything you perceive seems as real as the world you've always known. But how can you be sure? How do you know that what you are experiencing isn't just another layer of illusion? What if reality itself is nothing but a sophisticated simulation, a virtual space woven from data? What if everything you perceive, every color, every sound, is part of a vast network of information, crafted to mimic the real world so seamlessly that you can no longer distinguish the two? Could the line between virtual and real be so fine, so fragile, that it no longer exists? In the realm of virtual reality, this question becomes more pressing. The more immersive the experience, the more indistinguishable it becomes from waking life. You move through it, you interact with it, and you are caught up in the narrative it presents. But is that not what life itself is? A narrative, a projection of the mind that we take for reality. There is an unsettling beauty in this thought, that our perceptions of the world are as malleable as the worlds we create in virtual spaces. If we can craft a reality so convincing that the mind cannot tell the difference, does that mean our waking reality is just as subject to this illusion? Are we living in a simulation, one so sophisticated that it becomes impossible to recognize? Virtual reality takes us further down this rabbit hole, offering a glimpse into what might be possible. The world you step into feels so real that it becomes hard to remember that it is not. The objects you touch, the environments you explore, each detail, each sensation is carefully constructed, and in that moment, you lose yourself in it, becoming part of the illusion. This raises a deeper question. If you cannot distinguish between what is real and what is simulated, does it matter? If everything you experience feels as real as the waking world, does it change anything to know that it is not? The mind doesn't care for the origin of the experience. It only cares that the experience feels complete, that it resonates with the senses. And yet the question lingers, how do we know that our experiences in the waking world are not similarly constructed? What if the reality you move through is just as malleable as the one in virtual reality? If we cannot tell the difference between the real and the imagined, does it mean that both are equally valid? Virtual reality forces us to confront the nature of perception itself. What do we trust when our senses are deceived so easily? The mind, so accustomed to interpreting sensory input, cannot always distinguish between what is fabricated and what is not. And if that is true in a controlled environment like virtual reality, what does it say about the world we take for granted? In many ways, the distinction between virtual reality and waking life begins to fade. Both are experiences shaped by our minds, both constructed from sensory information. The more convincing the simulation, the harder it becomes to discern the boundary. It's as if reality itself is made of the same stuff, fragile, elusive, ever-changing. Perhaps the real question is not whether virtual reality is real, but whether we can ever truly define what real means. If we live in a world where our perceptions can be so easily manipulated, then how do we define the boundaries of our own experiences? Are we ever truly certain of the world around us, or are we always floating in a sea of possibility, unsure of what is truly there? In virtual reality, the mind is free to wander, to explore worlds it could never touch in waking life. And yet, even in this boundless space, there is a question that persists. What is the difference between this world and the one we inhabit when we open our eyes? The mind moves through both with equal fluidity, equally susceptible to the forces of perception. The indistinguishability between virtual and waking realities challenges the very nature of what we believe to be true. It forces us to question the reliability of our senses, to wonder whether the world we experience is as solid as we think. If a virtual world can feel as real as this one, how can we be certain that this world is not, in some sense, a projection of our own minds? There is a quiet, disorienting beauty in this realization, that we are, in some ways, always living in a simulation, whether crafted by technology or by the very workings of the mind. Our senses, our perceptions, shape the world we live in, and in that shaping, we create our own reality. Perhaps we are all, in a way, living within a vast virtual reality of our own making. And yet, even as we ponder this, something remains, something deeply real in the act of questioning, in the awareness of the mind itself. Whether in virtual spaces or in waking life, the experience of being aware, of questioning what is real, is the one constant. Perhaps it is this awareness that forms the true boundary between dream and waking, between illusion and reality. So the next time you step into a virtual world, or even as you move through the world around you, ask yourself, what is real, what is illusion? And if you cannot answer, does it matter? Does it change anything to know that the line between them is as delicate as the thoughts that pass through your mind? There is no singular moment when the self is born, no instant when it crystallizes into a coherent whole. Instead, there are fragments, thoughts, perceptions, memories, all weaving together, layer by layer, until a narrative emerges. But what if this story we tell ourselves is not as fixed as we believe? Dennett, a philosopher of mind, presents an intriguing idea. He proposes that consciousness is not a single unified narrative, but rather a collection of drafts, constantly revised and edited in real time. His model, known as the multiple drafts model, suggests that what we experience as a seamless flow of thought is actually the result of many competing interpretations, constantly being written and rewritten. Imagine for a moment that your consciousness is like a novel being written while you live it. At any given moment, your mind produces multiple drafts, each a slightly different interpretation of the same experience. These drafts are not neatly lined up, nor are they all aware of each other. They coexist, sometimes competing, sometimes merging, but always in flux. This idea challenges the traditional view of the self as a stable, coherent entity. In Dennett's model, there is no central author of consciousness, no single self that oversees the process. Instead, there are multiple drafts, each one shaped by the events of the moment, the context, and the countless influences that swirl through the mind. The drafts we write are not fixed records of the past. They are alive, constantly shifting as we process new information. Our sense of self, the continuous stream of thoughts and perceptions we call I, is not a static thing. It is a dynamic, ever-changing collection of revisions, each one drawing from an ocean of experiences. What does this mean for our understanding of reality? If our consciousness is a constant process of rewriting, where is the line between waking and dreaming? Perhaps, Dennett suggests, the boundary is more porous than we realize. The drafts we create are shaped by both external events and internal processes. What we perceive as reality is just one version of the story we are constantly drafting. Consider the moments when you reflect on an experience. The more you think about it, the more the memory changes, reshapes itself to fit new perspectives. What seemed clear and certain at the time becomes less defined, altered by the mind's constant revision. Memory itself is a draft, an ever-evolving narrative that shifts with each retelling. Dennett's multiple drafts model invites us to question the very nature of consciousness. If we are always revising, always editing, then what is the real version of ourselves? The self we experience in any given moment is just one of many drafts, a temporary construct shaped by the current state of our mind. It is always subject to change. In this view, even our perceptions of the world are drafts. What we see, hear, feel, and touch are not direct experiences of reality, but rather interpretations of it, filtered through the lens of memory, expectation, and the mind's ongoing revisions. What we think of as objective reality is always in the process of becoming, always subject to the drafts of the mind. This model blurs the line between what we think of as waking and dreaming. If our consciousness is always revising, if reality itself is constantly rewritten in the mind, then what makes waking life any different from a dream? Both are, in a sense, collections of drafts, revisions of experience that shape our sense of reality in the moment. Consider the way we interpret dreams. In a dream, we accept what we experience as real, even as the world around us shifts and changes without warning. We move from one scene to another, from one feeling to the next, without questioning the continuity of our experience. But when we wake up, we realize how fluid, how impermanent the dream world truly was. This fluidity of experience, this constant rewriting, is just as present in waking life as it is in our dreams. Dennett's model suggests that the process of drafting reality is not confined to sleep. It happens in every moment, shaping our perceptions, altering our sense of self, and weaving together the fabric of our experience. Waking, then, is just another form of dreaming, a draft of reality in motion. The idea of multiple drafts allows for a more flexible understanding of consciousness. Rather than seeing the mind as a fixed entity, we begin to understand it as a work in progress, always evolving, always adapting. The self is not a singular, unchanging thing, but a story in constant flux, written and rewritten by the very process of living. But there is something comforting in this view as well. If we are always revising, then there is always room for change. The drafts of our consciousness are not final. They can be edited, revised, altered. The sense of self, then, is not a permanent fixture, but a living process, one that can evolve, adapt, and grow in ways we may not fully understand. In this light, Dennett's model encourages us to embrace the fluidity of experience, to see the mind as a canvas in constant motion. Our waking lives, like our dreams, are not fixed but are constantly being rewritten, shaped by the drafts of our perception and interpretation. Perhaps the true nature of reality is not a static thing at all, but an ever-shifting landscape, unfolding before us in an endless series of drafts. And so, as you move through your day, as you experience the world, remember that your consciousness is not a single unchanging point. It is a series of drafts, revisions, and edits, each one forming a story that is always in motion. The self, the world, and the very nature of reality are all part of this ongoing process, a draft in the making, never quite finished, always becoming. You walk through the world, unaware of the complex layers that lie beneath each step, each breath, each glance. On the surface, things seem simple. Your senses deliver information, your mind processes it, and you respond. But what if this seemingly straightforward experience is a reflection of two distinct types of consciousness, operating in parallel? In the realm of philosophy, consciousness has been divided into two categories: phenomenal consciousness and access consciousness. Phenomenal consciousness refers to the raw, subjective experience of being, what it feels like to see a sunset, taste a sweet fruit, or hear a song. It is the inner world, the private realm of sensation and feeling, the part of us that experiences but cannot always be easily communicated. Access consciousness, on the other hand, refers to the brain's ability to access and utilize information. It is the part of consciousness responsible for reasoning, decision-making, and reflection. It allows us to think about what we see, to plan and to act upon the information available. While phenomenal consciousness is subjective, access consciousness is more objective, concerned with what we can do with the information we perceive. The distinction between these two forms of consciousness challenges our understanding of what it means to be aware. How do they relate to one another? Is it possible to have access to information without experiencing it subjectively, or to experience something deeply without being able to reflect on it? Consider a moment when you are deeply immersed in an experience. Perhaps you're listening to music, your mind lost in the rhythms and melodies. This is phenomenal consciousness at work, the sheer feeling of the music, the emotions it evokes. But while the music plays, your mind might not be actively thinking about the chords, the structure, or the instruments involved. It's not processing in a reflective way, but rather in the direct felt experience. Now imagine that, as you continue to listen, you start to reflect on the music, thinking about the lyrics, analyzing the composition, or considering how it makes you feel compared to other songs. This shift represents access consciousness, the reflective conceptual layer of awareness that allows you to process and interpret the raw experience of phenomenal consciousness. The relationship between these two types of consciousness is not always clear-cut. Sometimes, access consciousness appears to operate on its own, processing information that we are not actively aware of in a conscious sense. Think of the way you can type on a keyboard without thinking about the individual movements of your fingers, or the way you can walk through a room while lost in thought. Your access consciousness is guiding your actions, while phenomenal consciousness lingers, distant but present. At other times, the two overlap in ways that are hard to distinguish. You may reflect on an experience in a way that deeply alters your perception of it, making the subjective experience shift. Perhaps an old memory resurfaces, something you thought you'd forgotten. As you remember, the feelings and sensations associated with it resurface as well, giving you a taste of phenomenal consciousness through the lens of access consciousness. The two merge, each amplifying the other, until the boundaries are no longer so clear. What happens then, when these two forms of consciousness are disconnected? What if you could access information but not experience it subjectively? Or what if you could experience something intensely but not be able to reflect on it? The thought is disorienting, a reminder that our sense of being is not just one thing, but an intricate interplay of sensations, thoughts, and awareness. Consider the possibility that some of the most profound experiences in life are those that remain purely in the realm of phenomenal consciousness. A moment of pure awe, for example, when you look at a breathtaking landscape or hear a piece of music that stirs your soul, there is no need to think about it, to analyze it, to explain it. The experience itself is enough, and yet the mind can never fully be rid of the need to reflect, to interpret. In the same vein, think about a moment when your mind is caught in a cycle of thought, an argument, a dilemma, a difficult decision. You may not feel anything particularly intense, but your access consciousness is fully engaged, processing data, making connections, working through the problem. In that moment, phenomenal consciousness recedes into the background, almost unnoticed, yet still shaping the emotional undercurrent of your thoughts. Both forms of consciousness work together to create the experience of being. One provides the raw data, the sensory input, the feeling of existence itself. The other provides the structure, the analysis, the ability to reflect and make decisions based on that experience. They dance together in the background of our awareness, sometimes distinct, sometimes indistinguishable, but always present. In dreams, this interplay becomes even more fluid. Sometimes, the world of dreams feels intensely real, and yet, we can reflect on it with our waking minds. Our access consciousness processes the dream, even while phenomenal consciousness experiences it, and the two inform each other in ways that make it difficult to tell where one begins and the other ends. This interplay, so easily overlooked in waking life, becomes more pronounced in the liminal spaces between sleep and wakefulness. Perhaps the key to understanding consciousness lies in this delicate balance between the phenomenal and the accessible. It is not just one or the other that defines us, but the interplay between them, the flow of experience and reflection that allows us to navigate the world. To be conscious is not just to feel, nor is it merely to think, it is to be both, simultaneously, in constant motion. What happens then, when the balance tips too far in one direction? Can we experience intensely without reflection, or reflect endlessly without feeling? It's an unsettling thought, one that underscores how fragile our sense of self truly is. The delicate dance between experience and reflection shapes our reality, but what happens when it's disrupted? As we continue to explore the boundaries of waking and dreaming, we begin to see that consciousness is not a singular unified experience. It is a multifaceted process, one that weaves together sensations, thoughts, memories, and reflections into the fabric of reality. The boundary between phenomenal and access consciousness is not fixed. It shifts, merges, and separates, guiding us through each moment, each experience, each breath. There is a space between wakefulness and sleep where the mind lingers, caught in a delicate dance. You close your eyes, your body heavy, your thoughts drifting, but then something strange emerges from the quiet, a vision, a sound, an impossible sensation that feels as real as anything you've known, yet it doesn't belong. These are the hypnagogic hallucinations, fleeting glimpses of the mind's creativity at the cusp of sleep. They arrive uninvited, like whispers from the depths of the subconscious, blurring the line between reality and dream. You know in your core that what you are seeing is not real, yet the experience is undeniable. You cannot ignore it. Sometimes it's the feeling of a shadow crossing the room, or the distant sound of your name being called, your eyes snapping open, heart racing, yet nothing is there. Other times, you might see images, bright patterns, vivid colors, figures dancing in the space before you, as if the world itself is caught in a brief moment of transformation. They are not dreams, not fully formed, but neither are they mere figments of your imagination. In these moments, your senses are both heightened and confused. You are awake, and yet not entirely awake. Your mind, in its transition between the worlds of thought and dream, creates these vivid illusions, projecting them onto the fabric of the room, layering them over reality, like a veil. It is the mind's way of crossing the threshold, of shifting from one state of consciousness to another. What is the nature of these experiences? Are they glimpses of something deeper, a shadow of the subconscious reaching up into the waking world? Or are they simply the brain's playful misfires, neural sparks igniting in the darkness, creating fleeting fragments of the mind's strange tapestry? Perhaps both, perhaps neither. Sometimes, the hallucinations are more vivid, more complex. You might hear music, soft but clear, as if a distant symphony were playing just beyond the edge of your awareness. Or you might feel the presence of someone, standing close to you, their breath on your skin, even as you know you are alone. These sensations are so real that you reach out only to grasp nothing but air. They are the mind's way of folding reality in on itself, creating layers where none should exist. The waking world and the dream world, normally separated by a vast chasm, bleed together in these moments. The hallucinations, though brief, remind you that the boundary between these states is far less rigid than we imagine. Perhaps it's not a boundary at all, but a gentle gradient, where waking flows into sleeping, and vice versa. The experience of a hypnagogic hallucination is a reminder of how fragile our perception of reality truly is. In that brief moment between sleep and wakefulness, the mind is free to stretch, to create, to blur the lines between the possible and the impossible. We often think of reality as something fixed, but these illusions show us that perception is a shifting landscape, always subject to change. What if these hallucinations are not just errors in the brain, but a deeper unspoken truth? What if they are fragments of dreams trying to break through, trying to remind us that the boundaries of the mind are not as solid as we think? The mind in its quiet moments of transition may offer us these glimpses to show us that what we perceive as real is only a shadow, a fleeting moment held together by fragile threads. And yet there is a beauty in the fleeting nature of these experiences. They are gone as quickly as they arrive, leaving behind a sense of wonder, a question lingering in the mind. What was that? Was it real? Was it a dream? The mind refuses to settle on a single answer, and in that uncertainty, there is something comforting, a reminder that we are, in some ways, always on the edge of discovery, always shifting between worlds. Sometimes, the hallucinations are benign, almost playful, like fleeting images in a dream. But other times, they can be unsettling, even terrifying. A face that suddenly appears, staring at you with hollow eyes. A loud bang, as if something has crashed just beside you, only to find there is nothing there. These moments, though brief, can make you question what is real, what is truly before you, and what is simply a product of a mind slipping through the cracks of wakefulness. The phenomenon of hypnagogic hallucinations invites us to confront the very nature of our consciousness. When we move between wakefulness and sleep, our minds do not simply shut off, but continue to function in complex ways, creating, shaping, interpreting the world around us. In these moments of transition, we glimpse the mind's ability to weave alternate realities, offering us a taste of the boundless creativity that lies within. And yet, as we wake, the hallucinations fade, retreating back into the shadows of the mind, leaving us to wonder at their fleeting presence. Was it a dream, or was it something more? The uncertainty lingers as the waking world slowly reasserts itself, firming up the edges of reality, reminding us of the lines that separate the real from the imagined. But in that space between wakefulness and sleep, the lines are thinner than we think. Reality becomes something softer, more malleable, a canvas waiting for the mind to paint upon it. The hypnagogic hallucinations, in their ephemeral beauty, remind us that perception is not fixed, but constantly shifting. And in that shifting, the boundary between the dream and the waking world becomes not a wall, but a bridge, fluid, ever-changing, and always moving. Perhaps it is not so much the hallucinations themselves that intrigue us, but the space they inhabit. A space where the mind is free to wander, to create, to transform the world around us. It is a space where dreams meet reality, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and where the very fabric of existence begins to unravel, revealing the threads that tie us to both worlds. As you move through your day, remember that the boundary between dream and waking is not as rigid as we believe. It is in fact a fluid landscape, shaped by the mind, by perception, by the gentle shifting of consciousness itself. And in the moments when the mind lingers between these worlds, you are reminded that what is real is often just a matter of perspective. The world shifts beneath your feet, like sand slipping through your fingers. You wake, slowly at first, blinking into the dim light of morning. It feels familiar, this waking world, yet something is off. You shake it off, moving through your day, only to realize none of this is real. You've done this before. This moment, this feeling, this movement, repeating in endless cycles. It's not just déjà vu. It's something deeper, more profound. An Inception loop, a series of dreams within dreams, each layer pulling you further away from a singular sense of reality. How do you know you're truly awake? The boundaries between what is real and what is imagined become blurred, dissolving like a mist. You move from one world to another, each seeming more convincing than the last. The weight of your body, the texture of the air, the sound of your breath, everything feels so solid, so unquestionable. And yet there is always a tug, a pullback, a question you cannot answer. Inception loops, like the layers of a dream within a dream, challenge our perceptions of reality. What if the life you live, the moments you experience, are not one continuous narrative, but a series of nested realities, each more convincing than the one before? What if each waking world is just another layer of the dream? These loops are not easily recognized. They move with subtlety, weaving through time, creating the illusion of linear progression. You wake up, or so you think. The world appears exactly as it should, unchanged, stable, familiar, but the deeper you look, the more disorienting it becomes. A flicker here, a shift there, you realize you've been here before. The disorientation grows as you move through the loop, each step feeling more familiar, more inevitable. It's as though time itself bends back on itself, folding into a closed circuit, leaving you trapped in an infinite cycle. The more you try to escape, the more the world tightens around you. It becomes harder to distinguish one layer from another. At first you might question your perception. Could it be a glitch, a trick of the mind? But the more you explore, the more the world conforms to your every expectation. It is both frustrating and beautiful. A puzzle you cannot solve, an endless corridor you cannot escape. Each time you think you've broken free, another layer opens up, just as real as the last. In the world of Inception loops, the very nature of time becomes elastic. The past, present, and future blend together, slipping between each layer like water through cracks. The further you go, the more the notion of a fixed moment dissolves. Everything is a reflection, a repetition of what came before. There is no escape, no final awakening. Only the next layer, the next version of reality. What does it mean to be truly awake, if every waking moment is simply another dream? If the mind can create such vivid, convincing realities within the dream state, what is to say that waking life is any different? In these loops, you begin to wonder, can we ever be truly certain of the world we experience? The sensation of being trapped in an inception loop reveals the fragility of our perception. Our sense of self, the world around us, our memories, all of it exists within the confines of our minds, constantly shifting, constantly being rewritten. It is as though the mind itself is in a perpetual state of creation, always crafting new layers, new narratives, new versions of reality. Each time you wake, the world presents itself as new, as real, but underneath it, there is a quiet, growing suspicion that the world you see is only a shadow of something deeper, something unfathomable. What is the true nature of reality, if every moment is a part of a larger, ever-shifting web? Perhaps we are all caught in this intricate dance, unaware of the layers within layers that shape our perceptions. The more you move through these loops, the more your grip on reality loosens. It is as though you are not the master of your own experience, but a passenger, carried along by forces beyond your comprehension. The world is not yours to control. It is a creation, a construct, and you are both the observer and the participant. In the deeper layers of the loop, you begin to question the very fabric of time itself. If each moment is a repetition, a reflection of another moment, what does time mean? Is it an illusion, a construct that allows us to navigate these layers, or is it the very thing that keeps us locked within them? Perhaps the flow of time is just another illusion, another layer of the dream. And yet there is beauty in the loop. The more you experience, the more you see the intricate connections between each layer. The world may be fragmented, a series of nested realities, but there is a strange harmony to it. The pieces fit together in ways that are both comforting and unsettling. There is a rhythm to it, a pulse that moves through each layer, drawing you deeper into the fabric of existence. The inception loop is not a trap, but an invitation. It asks you to reconsider your perceptions, to question the nature of reality itself. If every moment, every sensation, every experience is simply another layer, then what is the true self? What is the true world? Are we merely characters in an endless story, caught in a cycle that never truly ends? As you move through the loop, the world continues to shift, to change, to unfold in ways that you cannot predict. The boundaries between dream and waking, between reality and illusion, fade. The more you think you understand, the more the layers multiply. Perhaps in the end, it is not about escaping the loop, but learning to live within it, embracing the fluidity of perception. And so, as you drift between layers, caught in the endless dance of the inception loop, the question remains, what is real? What is the true nature of the world we inhabit? And are we ever truly awake? The layers unfold, each more captivating than the last, leaving you to wonder if there is any boundary at all between waking and dreaming. You lie still, eyes closed, yet your mind is wide awake. You can feel the weight of your body, the soft rustling of the sheets, the distant hum of the world outside. But where are you? Truly, is this your body, this moment, this place? How do you know it's you? This is the problem of self-location, a philosophical puzzle that touches the very core of what it means to be. We move through the world, experiencing it as if we are firmly rooted in a singular point, a specific location in space and time. But what if this sense of being anchored is an illusion? How do you know where you are? When you close your eyes and let your mind wander, you may still feel present in your body, in the space around you, yet the awareness of this space becomes strangely malleable, fading in and out. The mind seems to place you, but what is it that grounds you to a particular point? Consider a dream, where you may travel through vast landscapes, wander through cities, or float among the stars. In that moment, it all feels real. But when you wake, you realize that none of it was truly you, at least not in the way you normally understand it. The boundary between self and space becomes fluid, and you begin to wonder, where exactly is the self located in the dream? In waking life, the problem appears less pronounced. We assume we are located in a single fixed place, our bodies, standing here in this moment. But what if our sense of location is far more uncertain than we realize? The mind, constantly shifting, moves between different states of awareness, sometimes feeling rooted, sometimes adrift. Are we ever really in one place at all? You may feel your body as a continuous presence, rooted in space, but the truth is that this feeling is constructed by the mind, just like the rest of the sensory data we process. The brain takes in information from the environment, assembles it, and creates the sense of self anchored in this body, in this moment. But this is only one version of the self, an illusion, constantly reconstructed and reinterpreted. What happens if this illusion falters? What if your mind starts to question where the self truly resides? Could it be that the mind creates a false sense of location, a fixed point in space, when in reality the self is an ongoing process, never truly tied to one place? What if this feeling of being here is just another dream, an unfolding narrative? The problem deepens when we consider that we rarely question our own location. We take for granted that we are here, in our bodies, in our rooms, in our lives. But the question remains, what makes this experience of being here any more real than the imagined worlds of our dreams? How do we know that the sensation of being in one place is anything more than the mind's way of holding things together? We navigate through the world, moving between different experiences, environments, and emotions. Yet in each moment, we must ask, how do we know where we truly are? The sense of location is so deeply tied to the idea of self, to the feeling of existence, that we rarely stop to consider how fragile it is. Even in our waking state, the mind is constantly rewriting the narrative of where we are, where we've been, and where we might go. This narrative is built upon layers of perception and memory, forming a coherent picture of self-location. But what if that picture, that sense of certainty, is simply a construct, shaped by forces beyond our conscious awareness? The mind places you in the world, but it also creates the world around you. This is the essence of the problem of self-location. The self is not just a fixed point, but a shifting dynamic presence within a world that is equally fluid. Your body may feel solid, but it is as much a perception as the environment you navigate, constantly shifting as your mind shifts. When you step outside yourself, when you observe your own awareness, the illusion of location becomes even more apparent. You can feel yourself, yet you cannot truly touch the place you inhabit. The self seems to move, to float, to exist only in the narrative that you, the mind, have created. But where is the self truly? Is it in the body, in the mind, in the space around you? If reality is constructed by the mind, then where do you stand in relation to it? Are you simply the product of the sensory input you receive, reshaped into a coherent story by the mind? Or is there something deeper, something more fundamental, that places you here, in this body, in this world? The problem of self-location asks us to reconsider the nature of reality itself and our place within it. In dreams, the question becomes more elusive. You may move through worlds, experience sensations, but are you ever truly anchored? Are you truly there in the dream, or simply drifting through layers of consciousness, unable to find your true point of origin? If the dream is just as real as waking, then where is the boundary between the self and the world, between location and perception? As you wake, the world around you feels stable, but how do you know you are in the right location? The mind shapes the space, projects the self, but can the mind truly locate you? Are you here, now as you think you are? Or are you drifting in a world of shifting perceptions, caught in a web of thoughts and experiences that never fully settle? The problem of self-location is not just a philosophical puzzle, it is a reminder of the fluidity of our experience. The self anchored to a body, tied to a place, is a fragile illusion. It shifts with each breath, with each thought, with each fleeting moment. And in that shifting we come to understand that the boundaries of our existence are not as solid as we believe. You step through the door, but nothing feels quite as it should. The walls shift slightly, and the air hums with a faint, unfamiliar energy. You glance around. This place, this world, it seems so real, yet something is off. You turn, and behind you, the door is gone. Nested realities. Layers of experience, one folded into the other, like pages in a book, each world more real than the last, yet each bound by the same tenuous threads of perception. You move through these layers unknowingly, trapped in a cycle of realities, each one mirroring the other, but none quite the same. What if the world you live in now, the one you call real, is nothing more than one layer in an infinite stack of nested worlds? Imagine that every time you fall asleep, or when your attention shifts, you slip into another reality, indistinguishable from the one you left. Could it be that your waking life is just another dream within a dream, nested in layers too intricate to comprehend? Each layer of reality, each nested world, feels so true, so tangible, so solid. But what if each one is simply a reflection of the next, an illusion spun by the mind's ceaseless creation of worlds? You wake in one, and it feels complete. But as you go deeper, you begin to see the cracks, small subtle breaks in the fabric. In these nested realities, every world can exist independently, each one creating its own version of time, space, and self, and yet they are all interconnected, like an endless loop, stretching through the void of perception. The deeper you go, the more you begin to question which reality is the true one. Is there even such a thing as truth, or is it just another layer, another story built on the others? Sometimes you may find yourself waking within a dream, only to realize that this wakefulness is also part of the same illusion. The boundaries between dream and waking blur, slip away, until the distinctions seem meaningless. Each reality feeds into the next, creating an intricate dance of perception and illusion, never quite stopping, never quite settling. How do you know when you are truly awake? How can you trust that what you experience is real, when each moment could simply be another layer within an infinite system of nested realities? The more you try to grasp the truth, the more it slips away, like trying to hold water in your hands. And yet in these nested realities, there is beauty. Each layer is a world unto itself, with its own rules, its own logic, its own sense of self. The deeper you go, the more complex and intricate the worlds become. They shift, they evolve, and in their constant change, they reveal the richness of existence, a never-ending unfolding of experience. The paradox lies in the nature of these worlds. They are both real and unreal. They exist as long as you perceive them, as long as you experience them. But as soon as you step outside of one, or wake from one, it fades, slipping back into the depths of your subconscious, awaiting the next cycle. Each layer exists for only as long as it is observed, as long as it is believed. Perhaps the most unsettling question these nested realities pose is, if every reality is a product of perception, a creation of the mind, then what is real? Is there any true reality beneath the layers, or are we simply wandering through a labyrinth of our own making, forever searching for the one world that is not a dream? In this maze of realities, nothing is permanent. Every moment shifts, every sensation fades into the next, and yet each reality feels so convincing, so undeniable. It is as though we are actors in a play, performing in one reality, then slipping into another, all the while unaware that we are being watched by the mind itself, the creator of all these worlds. What if the key to understanding existence lies not in searching for the real world, but in embracing the endless layers, the infinite worlds that form our perceptions? Perhaps it is not the search for one reality that matters, but the experience of being part of an ever-evolving narrative, one layer at a time, one world within another. These layers of reality are not just a philosophical puzzle, they are a window into the nature of perception, a reminder that what we see, hear, and feel is not always the world as it is, but the world as we interpret it. Every world, every layer, is a reflection of the mind's constant need to create, to shape, to define. And as you move through each layer, as you slip between worlds, you may begin to wonder, is there an end to this process? Or is the mind always creating new worlds, new realities, each one more convincing than the last, until we can no longer tell where one ends and the next begins? Perhaps the answer is not in finding the true world, but in learning to live within the layers. Nested realities show us that there is no final truth, no ultimate world that exists beyond the mind's creation. Instead, there is only the continuous unfolding of experience, each layer a new version of the self, of the world, of the universe itself. And in this unfolding we find a kind of freedom, a freedom to explore, to dream, to exist in endless worlds, all woven together in a seamless, infinite dance. Imagine for a moment a world where your every desire, every wish, every pleasure is at your fingertips. A machine offers you the chance to live out your ideal life, to feel only the joy, the excitement, the satisfaction you crave. You slip into this experience, and for as long as it lasts, it is all you know. The question is simple: would you choose this life? This is the thought experiment of the experience machine, proposed by philosopher Robert Nozick. He invites us to consider a machine that could simulate any experience we desired, perfectly rendering every sensation, every emotion, every outcome. You could live the life of your dreams, free from pain, free from disappointment, free from struggle, but would it be enough? The machine promises to provide everything. You would feel the same thrill of success, the warmth of love, the beauty of art, all with perfect clarity. It would be a world of pleasure and fulfillment where nothing is left to chance. Yet, even in its perfection, something nags at the edges of this idea. Would it still be meaningful? In the machine, you would have no knowledge of it being a simulation. It would feel in every way like real life. The sensations would be as vivid as anything you've ever experienced. Your memories would be built from these experiences, and you would carry them with you as though they were true. But are they? Nozick's challenge is this: would you choose to plug into the machine? Would you surrender your current reality for a perfect but artificial one? The question reveals a deeper issue. Is the experience itself enough to give life meaning, or is something else necessary, something beyond the mere sensation of joy or pleasure? The very idea of the machine forces us to examine the nature of fulfillment. If life is a sequence of experiences crafted to satisfy every desire, does it still hold value? Would the absence of real choices, of real struggle, diminish the joy? Is meaning in the experience, or is it in the authenticity of the struggle to reach it? We often seek meaning through challenges, through growth, through overcoming adversity. The experience machine, in providing a constant stream of pleasure, would deny us that opportunity. The life it offers might be pleasant, but would it be fulfilling in the way we understand fulfillment? Would it be enough to simply feel good, or do we need something more? The idea of the experience machine also brings us face to face with the question of what makes life real. If everything is fabricated, if every joy is a product of the machine's design, is it still your life? The machine gives you everything you want, but does it give you asterisks? Does it allow you to become the person you were meant to be, or does it just give you a perfect copy of yourself? This question cuts deep because it touches on the essence of who we are. We are not simply a series of experiences, a collection of pleasant feelings. We are shaped by our decisions, by the paths we choose, by the things we learn through hardship, and by the connections we make with others. The experience machine offers none of this. It provides an illusion, but not a life. And yet, there is a quiet pull to the machine. The promise of an existence free from pain, free from the endless search for meaning, a life where happiness is guaranteed, where suffering is eliminated. It feels almost too good to pass up, yet the question lingers: does the absence of struggle, of growth, of authenticity make it worthwhile? For some, the allure of the experience machine is undeniable. The idea of living without the burden of life's challenges may seem like the ultimate freedom. But is freedom truly found in the absence of difficulty, or is it found in the ability to choose, to confront the challenges life throws at us, and to learn from them? There is a stark contrast here between the life we are given and the life we might choose. The experience machine promises comfort, ease, and endless pleasure, but it cannot offer the depth that comes with the human condition, the messiness, the unpredictability, the moments of triumph and failure that make life uniquely ours. The choice between the experience machine and the real world then becomes a question about what we value most. Is it the quality of the experiences we have, or the authenticity of the process through which we create those experiences? Is meaning found in the ease of pleasure, or in the hard-fought moments that shape our sense of self? Perhaps Nozick's question isn't about whether we would choose the machine, but about what we truly seek in life. Do we desire a life that is perfect, or do we seek something more, something deeper, something that can only be found by living authentically, by choosing our paths, by embracing the complexity of existence with all its pain and joy? The experience machine invites us to consider the very nature of happiness, of fulfillment, of meaning. But in doing so, it also forces us to confront our deepest desires and fears. What are we willing to sacrifice for the sake of comfort? What do we truly need to live a life that feels worth living? As you reflect on this, you might ask yourself, what is it that you value most in your life? Is it the experiences, the moments of joy, the pleasures, or is it the journey, the growth, the challenges, the connections, and the ways in which you shape your existence? And in that question, you may find the answer to Nozick's challenge. You wake up in a world so familiar, every detail so clear, yet something feels elusive, just beyond your grasp. You touch the walls, feel the cool morning air, yet the deeper you look, the more something feels off. The line between what is real and what is imagined begins to blur. The problem of illusion is a question that has plagued thinkers for centuries. It asks, how can we ever be sure that what we experience is truly real? If everything we sense, everything we touch, everything we feel is filtered through the mind, how can we know that it is not an illusion, a fabrication? We live our lives convinced of the reality of the world around us. We touch, we see, we hear, and we trust these senses to guide us through life. Yet when we pause and truly reflect, a question arises: what if the world we experience is not as it seems? What if our senses deceive us, shaping a reality that is not truly there? Consider the way dreams unfold. In sleep, we experience vivid worlds, sometimes pleasant, sometimes terrifying, so real that we forget they are not. The dream feels tangible, the emotions so raw, the sensations so vivid. Yet when we wake, we realize that it was all a fabrication, a play of the mind. Could waking life be any different? The mind is a master of illusion, creating worlds, experiences, and sensations with the same ease as it does in a dream. The problem of illusion asks us to consider, what if the waking world is no different? What if the reality we trust so deeply is simply another layer of the mind's projection, a reflection of our own perceptions? In this view, nothing is certain. The ground beneath our feet, the sky above our heads, the people we encounter, are they truly as they seem? Or are they all simply constructs of the mind, illusions shaped by the filters of our senses and the narratives we weave around them? Our senses are not infallible. They can be tricked, manipulated, distorted. We can see a mirage in the desert, hear voices in silence, feel phantom limbs. The mind, it seems, is capable of creating illusions at will, blurring the line between reality and imagination. If this is true, how can we trust our senses to show us the world as it truly is? The problem of illusion is not just a philosophical puzzle, it is a challenge to our very understanding of reality. If everything we experience is shaped by the mind, if the world we know is a construct of perception, then what can we truly know for sure? Can we ever step outside the illusion and see the world as it truly is? The very act of questioning the nature of reality reveals the depth of the illusion. Once we begin to doubt our senses, once we begin to question the authenticity of our experiences, we open the door to uncertainty. And in that uncertainty lies both the beauty and the terror of the human condition. We are creatures of perception, navigating a world that may or may not be as it appears. Perhaps the greatest illusion is not the world itself, but our belief in our ability to perceive it accurately. We trust our senses, we trust our minds, but how much of that trust is founded in reality? What if the world we experience is not a reflection of the truth, but a shadow cast by our... Yet despite the uncertainty, we continue to live as though the world is real. We engage with it, shape it, and find meaning within it. Even if everything around us is an illusion, it is an illusion we must navigate. The question then is not whether the illusion is real, but how we find meaning within it. In this way, the problem of illusion becomes not just a question of perception, but a question of existence itself. If we cannot trust our senses, if we cannot trust our minds, how do we understand our place in the world? Is our sense of self also an illusion? Are we simply walking through a world of mirrors, reflecting ourselves endlessly? And yet, in this very illusion, we find beauty, connection, and purpose. We create lives, we build relationships, we form communities. If the world is an illusion, it is one that we live in fully, shaping our experiences with every thought, every action. Perhaps it is not the reality of the world that matters, but the way we engage with it. Even within the illusion, there is truth to be found. The emotions we feel, the thoughts we have, the connections we make, they are real in their own way, even if they are part of a constructed world. The experience of life, the act of living, is itself meaningful, regardless of whether it is real or not. It is real to us, and that is enough. The problem of illusion invites us to reflect on the nature of existence itself. It challenges us to reconsider the boundaries between dream and waking, perception and reality. And in doing so, it offers a deeper understanding of our place in the world, not as passive observers, but as active participants in the creation of our own realities. So as you move through your day, consider the nature of the world around you. Is it real, or is it an illusion? And in that question, find the space for exploration, for wonder, for the quiet beauty of a world that is both fleeting and eternal, shaped by the mind and lived by the self. You sit quietly, your eyes open, looking at the world around you. The light filters through the window, casting soft shadows on the floor. The air is still. You feel as though you understand the world in front of you, solid, tangible, real. But how do you know that it is what you think it is? The interface theory of perception, a concept rooted in the idea that perception is not a direct interaction with the world, but an interface, a filter through which we interpret reality. According to this theory, what we experience as reality is not the world itself, but a simplified representation designed to guide our actions and survival. It's not the world as it truly is, but a model shaped by our senses. This theory presents a striking idea. The world we see is not the world as it exists independently of us. It is a map, a user-friendly interface, crafted to allow us to interact with the environment in ways that are useful, that help us navigate the challenges of life. The true nature of the world, in this view, is hidden behind this interface, inaccessible to our senses. Consider the way you interact with your phone. You don't see the intricate coding behind the screen, nor the electricity flowing through the circuits. Instead, you experience an interface, a screen filled with icons, buttons, and images that allow you to navigate complex systems with ease. In the same way, your senses offer you an interface with the world, simplifying the complexity of reality into manageable, comprehensible experiences. This idea forces us to confront a central question: what is the true nature of reality? If we are perceiving an interface, a version of the world designed for our interaction, how can we know what the world is really like, outside of this interface? Are we walking through a world that is far more complex, far stranger than we can imagine, and our senses simply prevent us from seeing it? Think about the limitations of your senses. You only see a small range of light wavelengths. You only hear sounds within a narrow frequency. What does that mean for the world beyond your perception? Could it be that we are missing vast swaths of reality simply because our senses are limited, their purpose not to show us the world, but to help us survive within it? This is where the interface theory of perception challenges us. It suggests that our senses have evolved not to provide us with an accurate, detailed representation of the world, but to offer just enough information to help us navigate our environment effectively. The reality we experience is, in a sense, a simplified, distorted version of the true world, filtered and shaped by the needs of survival. Perhaps this is why the world seems so familiar, so comfortable. It's tailored to us. Our minds create an experience that is easy to understand, easy to interact with, leaving out much of the complexity and chaos that lies beneath. We are given an interface that works, that provides a world we can navigate with relative ease. But it is not the whole world. The world in this view is vast and intricate, far beyond our ability to perceive directly. Our senses limit us, shaping the information we receive into a version of reality that is optimized for action, for living, not for understanding the full depth of existence. We walk through this world interacting with it, yet never truly seeing it as it is. And yet, despite these limitations, we trust our senses implicitly. We trust that what we experience is real, that the world around us is exactly as it appears. But what if the world is far more complicated, far more intricate than we can ever comprehend? What if our perceptions are not a window to reality, but a veil, hiding the true nature of the world just beyond our reach? This is where the interface theory brings us face to face with uncertainty. We can never truly know what the world is like outside of our interface. The world we experience is shaped, molded by our senses, designed to help us survive, but it is not the full picture. The deeper we look, the more we realize that there is a vast unknown, a space where our understanding falls away. Consider the creatures around us: dogs, cats, birds. They see, hear, and experience the world in ways we cannot imagine. They have different interfaces, different sensory tools that allow them to navigate reality in their own way. What would it be like to see the world as they do? How much of reality is hidden from us, simply because we do not have the capacity to perceive it? The interface theory of perception asks us to step outside of our assumptions, to reconsider the way we interact with the world. It challenges us to think beyond our senses, to imagine what lies behind the veil of perception. The reality we experience may not be the true world, but a simplified version, designed for our survival and interaction. In this light, perception becomes less about understanding the world as it is, and more about navigating it effectively. We move through life with a map, a representation of reality that allows us to act, to make decisions, to survive. But what happens when we begin to question the accuracy of that map? What if the true nature of reality is beyond our grasp, hidden in the complexity of the world we cannot see? Perhaps the true beauty of this theory lies in its humility. It acknowledges that we cannot know everything, that our perceptions are limited, shaped by our biology, our evolution, and our needs. We are given just enough to survive, just enough to interact with the world, but never the full picture. And in that limitation, there is both mystery and wonder. As we navigate this interface, we begin to realize that the search for truth is not about discovering a singular static reality, but about understanding the limits of our perception. It is a journey of exploration, not of certainty. The world, vast and complex, remains just out of reach, always beyond our direct understanding, yet always available to us through the interface we've been given. A fleeting image appears in your mind, vivid and clear, an experience you are certain you had. You remember the laughter, the colors, the warmth, but the more you think about it, the more you realize something is off. Was it real, or was it implanted? How can you be sure? Memory is delicate, fragile. It shapes who we are, the stories we tell ourselves about our past, our identity. But what if memories are not as stable as we think? What if they can be manipulated, altered, even implanted, creating an experience that feels just as real as the original. This is the essence of the memory implant experiment. Imagine a world where memories can be introduced into the mind, memories that feel entirely your own, memories of experiences that you never actually lived. They are vivid, detailed, and convincing, yet they are not your memories at all. The distinction between what is real and what is fabricated begins to fade, and the question arises, are you still the same person? The memory implant experiment forces us to confront the nature of selfhood. If your memories shape your identity, what happens when they are altered or fabricated? Can you still trust your sense of self if you cannot even trust your memories? The past, the very foundation of who you are, becomes fluid, uncertain, a shifting landscape. In this thought experiment, the implanted memories feel just as real as the memories you've lived. They are full of detail, of emotion, of experience, yet they never happened. What does that mean for the future? What happens when our memories, once fixed, become as malleable as clay, shaped by external forces, by those who have the power to create them? How do you distinguish between the memories that belong to you and those that do not? When a memory is so convincing, so intertwined with your own experiences, how do you know it isn't real? The lines between the imagined and the lived blur, and with them the very foundation of your identity. What are you without your memories? Who are you when your past is no longer yours to own? The idea of memory implants also raises the question of what we value in our experiences. Is it the authenticity of the memory or the emotion it evokes? If a memory can be implanted to evoke the same feelings as a real one, does the distinction between the two matter? What if it's the feeling of the experience that truly shapes us rather than its authenticity? Consider the implications of a world where memories can be controlled. What if your desires, your dreams, your sense of purpose could be shaped by implanted experiences, crafted to push you in a certain direction? What if instead of living your life, you were simply playing out a narrative constructed by someone else? Would you still be you? The implanted memory is not just an illusion, it is a reimagining of reality itself. It challenges the very notion of truth, of authenticity. If your memories can be changed, how can you trust anything about your own life? How do you know that the experiences you cherish, the moments that have shaped you, are truly yours? This thought experiment reveals the fragility of memory, the ease with which it can be rewritten. Memory, once thought to be a faithful recorder of the past, becomes just another story, a narrative that can be shaped and reshaped. In this world, the boundaries of truth become fluid, and the past becomes as mutable as the future. There is something deeply unsettling in the idea of memory manipulation. If our memories are the building blocks of our identity, then what does it mean when they are no longer trustworthy? How do we know who we are if the very foundation of our selfhood can be altered, replaced, or erased? Yet the idea of implanted memories also hints at a deeper truth. Perhaps we are more than just the sum of our memories. Perhaps who we are lies not in the accuracy of our recollections, but in the way we experience the world, in the way we relate to others, in the emotions we feel in the present. Memory may shape us, but it does not define us. The power to implant memories raises an important question about control. Who controls your memories? Who shapes your reality? If memories can be crafted to fit a particular narrative, then what does that say about the nature of free will? Are we merely the products of our experiences, or do we have the ability to choose, to shape our own path? The idea of memory implants forces us to reconsider our understanding of the mind. What is the self, if not a collection of memories, experiences, and perceptions? If these can be altered or fabricated, does that mean the self is no more than a projection, a collection of stories that can be rewritten at will? What happens when the story of your life is no longer yours to tell? But there is another layer to the experiment. If memory implants can be so convincing, so indistinguishable from reality, does that mean reality itself is malleable? Perhaps we live in a world where not just our memories, but the very fabric of our experience is shaped by forces beyond our understanding. If memory can be manipulated, then what is to say the world itself is not just another story? In the space between dreams and waking, between the real and the imagined, memory becomes a fragile thread. The implanted memory, like a dream, slips through the fingers, leaving behind only the emotion, the sensation, the feeling of truth. Perhaps in the end it is not the memory itself that matters, but the experience it creates, the way it shapes our perception of who we are. And so as you reflect on the nature of memory, of identity, and of reality, you begin to see the delicate threads that weave them together. Each moment, each experience, each memory, real or imagined, becomes part of a larger story, a story we are both creating and living. But the question remains, can we trust the story, or are we simply drifting through a dream? You wake up in the morning, eyes opening slowly, the world coming into focus, your thoughts begin to flow, a gentle stream of awareness moving through the events of yesterday, the tasks ahead. But what is it that links this moment to the one before, to the life you've lived for years? What keeps the continuity of your mind intact? The continuity of consciousness is a puzzle that stretches through the heart of our understanding of self. We experience life as a seamless flow, a continuous thread that connects each moment to the next, each thought to the one before. But what if this continuity is more fragile, more elusive than we realize? We assume that the self we experience from moment to moment is the same, that the I who existed yesterday is the same as the I who exists now. But what if consciousness is not a fixed, stable stream, but a series of discrete moments, each one separate, each one potentially disconnected from the last? How can we be sure of the continuity between these moments? Every day, we experience time as a smooth, unbroken passage, a river flowing in one direction. Yet the mind's construction of this continuity is in many ways an illusion. Our awareness shifts, flickers, flows in and out, and in the spaces between, there is uncertainty. How do we know that the I of today is the same as the I of yesterday? In dreams, the continuity of consciousness is often fractured. We may drift between worlds, between selves, never quite sure of where one moment ends and the next begins. We wake with the vague feeling that we were someone else entirely in the dream, yet the person we were in the dream is not someone separate, but an extension of the same I we carry into the waking world. But in waking life, the illusion of continuity feels more stable. We move through the day with a sense of connectedness, of identity, as if the I that was here a moment ago is the same I that sits here now, reflecting on the question. But how much of this sense of continuity is based on a smooth narrative constructed by the mind? Each moment flows into the next, and yet when we look closely, the boundaries between them are less clear. The mind processes, categorizes, and links together experiences, but does that mean the I of today is truly the same as the I of yesterday? Or is it simply that the mind creates the illusion of continuity to keep the narrative intact? Perhaps the very concept of self, of continuity, is a construct, something the mind weaves together to maintain coherence. We rely on this story of continuity to guide us, to help us understand who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. But without this story, would we have a sense of self at all? In fact, the more we examine the flow of consciousness, the more we begin to question whether continuity is a necessary part of being. Could consciousness, in its purest form, be more fragmented, more discontinuous? Is the feeling of a continuous self simply the result of the mind's need to impose structure, to make sense of an otherwise chaotic experience? Consider the moments when you experience deep, uninterrupted focus, when time seems to stand still and the flow of awareness becomes a single, uninterrupted thread. In these moments, the continuity of self feels almost effortless. But as soon as the focus fades, the boundaries of the self seem to break down, and we are reminded of the mind's malleability. What happens then, when that continuity is disrupted, when the thread of consciousness is broken, even momentarily? Perhaps this is what makes deep sleep so mysterious, so unknowable. In sleep, the continuity of consciousness fades entirely. We lose the sense of self, and yet we awaken, often to find ourselves in the same body, in the same life, as though no time has passed at all. But has the I truly remained the same? If consciousness can shift so easily, so fluidly, what is the true nature of the self? Is it something stable, something that persists, or is it something more dynamic, more fluid, a collection of shifting experiences that we connect with the illusion of continuity? These questions challenge our understanding of the mind, of time, and of self, the continuity we experience, the sense that we are the same. I who wakes each day may be less a reflection of reality than a creation of the mind. And if that is true, what does it mean for our understanding of identity, of existence itself? Perhaps the true mystery of consciousness lies not in its continuity, but in its fluidity, in the way it weaves together the moments of our lives. The I that we experience may be nothing more than a momentary reflection, a thread spun by the mind, linking together a collection of experiences that we call life. But is that enough to make it real? The continuity of consciousness may be less about the persistence of a single self and more about the ongoing creation of meaning, of narrative. We are constantly rewriting the story of who we are, of where we've been, of what we've experienced. The I that we are is not fixed, but a living, breathing process, a narrative in constant motion. In the end, perhaps the problem of continuity is not about finding a fixed self, but about embracing the fluidity of existence. Perhaps the self is not a permanent fixture, but a process, unfolding and shifting with every moment, every thought, every experience. And in that, there is a strange kind of freedom, freedom to be, to change, to evolve. So, as you move through your day, ask yourself, what is the continuity of your consciousness? Is it something stable, something you can rely on? Or is it, like all things, constantly shifting, constantly changing, forming and reforming with every breath, every moment, every thought? The boundary between these moments, between these selves, is not as fixed as we think. There are moments when time seems to stretch beyond its normal confines, folding and expanding with a subtle grace. Perhaps it is a moment of deep reflection, or the feeling of waiting for something just beyond reach. Time in these moments feels less like a constant and more like a soft, malleable thread. This is the phenomenon of subjective time dilation. It occurs when our perception of time stretches, often without our awareness. A moment can feel endless, like a stretch of hours, while others slip by unnoticed, as if minutes vanish in the blink of an eye. Time moves differently, but it is not the clock that changes, only our experience of it. Consider those rare moments when you find yourself lost in thought, caught in a flow of deep concentration. In these moments, time appears to slow, each second stretching out like a quiet breath. You are so absorbed in the present, in the task at hand, that the passage of time becomes secondary, irrelevant to the world you inhabit. In contrast, there are times when you are restless, when you are waiting for something, perhaps a call, or a moment you know is coming. Time feels sluggish, thick, each minute feels like an hour, dragging its feet, and you find yourself glancing at the clock again and again, willing it to move faster. The minutes stretch, long and heavy, and you cannot escape them. This distortion of time, so personal and so intimate, invites us to question the very nature of its passage. If time can feel so different depending on our mental state, then how do we truly measure it? Is time a constant force that marches forward, or is it a fluid experience, shaped by our awareness, our emotions, our thoughts? In dreams, the sensation of time dilation is even more pronounced. A dream that feels as though it spans hours or days might only take minutes in reality. The rules of time collapse, and we move through moments as if they were but fleeting shadows. In dreams, time is not linear, it is flexible, subject to the mind's whims. What happens when we wake up and realize that the dream has only lasted a few moments? The entire world within it, the people, the places, the actions, felt real, felt long, yet was confined within the space of a few minutes. How can time feel so expansive in one realm and so fleeting in another? Subjective time dilation is not confined to dreams or deep focus. It also happens in moments of extreme emotion, fear, joy, love, grief, When you experience something intense, time bends. A single moment of fear, for instance, can feel as though it stretches for eternity, every heartbeat echoing, each breath more significant than the last. Time in these moments stands still, only to rush forward once the moment has passed. Similarly, moments of intense joy or connection can make time feel as though it slips away unnoticed. You are so caught up in the experience, in the moment of connection, that time no longer matters. You are not thinking about the hours passing. You are only existing in the moment, caught in its warmth, its glow. Time in these moments becomes irrelevant, just as it becomes irrelevant in dreams. What if time itself is not something objective, but a subjective experience, shaped by our minds and emotions? What if it is not a steady current, flowing in one direction, but a shifting river, winding and bending according to our perception? Perhaps our experience of time is just another layer of the mind, a way for us to make sense of the world, even if it is not accurate. The experience of time dilation also suggests that the mind has a great deal of control over our perception of reality. If we can change the way we experience time, if we can stretch a moment, collapse an hour, how does that shape our understanding of the world around us? Is reality, in some sense, as fluid as time itself? Perhaps the most unsettling thought is that just as our perception of time can be altered, so too can our perception of the world. If time is not fixed, but flexible, what does that say about the nature of reality? Are we merely experiencing time as a product of our consciousness, interpreting it as a constant when it is in fact a malleable experience? The paradox of subjective time dilation is that it challenges our assumptions about time's nature. If time is so flexible, so dependent on our mental state, can we ever truly measure it? Can we trust our experience of time as a guide, or is it just a reflection of our inner worlds? If time can stretch, can it also collapse? Even within the experience of time dilation, there is a strange sense of continuity. The mind moves through time, perceiving it in different ways, yet we still carry forward the sense of a continuous narrative, a story that unfolds moment by moment. The experience of time may change, but our sense of being, of existing, remains constant. And so in each passing moment, we find ourselves caught in the flow of time, time that bends, time that stretches, time that moves forward relentlessly. But perhaps in those moments when time feels infinite, we are reminded that it is not time itself that defines us, but the way we experience it, the way we live within it. Subjective time dilation invites us to reconsider the nature of time, to question the steady march of the clock, and to see time not as an objective force, but as a fluid experience. It is not the ticking of seconds that shapes us, but the moments we create within them. Time may bend, but it is our experience of it that shapes the world. There is a moment right before waking when the threads of a dream still cling to the edges of your mind, and the world feels both familiar and strange. You can almost taste the remnants of it, the colors, the emotions, the sensations, but they slip away as quickly as you try to hold them. The Phenomenology of Dreaming asks us to consider the nature of those moments, the experience of being inside a dream. What does it feel like to be lost in a world that is not quite real, yet feels undeniably true? How does the mind create these vivid worlds that seem just as solid as the waking world? When you dream, you are aware of your surroundings, yet something about them feels warped, distorted. Time flows differently. The rules of physics bend and twist. A dream can stretch for hours or pass in a heartbeat, and yet while inside it, everything seems perfectly normal, as if the world is as it should be. But what is the experience of being in that world? When you are dreaming, your awareness is filled with images, sounds, and sensations that seem so vivid. They feel more real than reality itself, drawing you into their embrace. Your body is still, but your mind moves through a space that seems alive, teeming with meaning and possibility. In the dream, you may recognize people, places, and objects familiar, yet somehow foreign. You move through them as though they are part of your history, yet they shift with a subtle, disorienting quality. The dream may contain elements of your waking life, but they are rearranged, recontextualized, transformed into something new, something strange. And then there are the moments of sheer surreality, where the world takes on a strange, almost magical quality. You fly, you float, you breathe underwater. The usual rules of life dissolve into possibilities that feel effortless, natural, even though they are impossible in the waking world. What makes these impossible feats feel so certain, so true within the dream? There are times when you wake within the dream itself, aware that you are dreaming, but unable to fully control the world around you. The sense of self is present, but it is fluid, uncertain, as if the boundaries of your identity shift with every thought. Who are you in a dream? Are you the same person who wakes each morning, or are you something else entirely, something born from the fabric of sleep? In these moments, the phenomenology of dreaming reveals the malleability of experience. The dream world is not fixed. It is shaped by your mind, your emotions, your fears and desires. You can shape it, change it, but only within the boundaries of what the dream allows. The dream is both a creation and a reflection, a world that is both yours and not yours. What is fascinating, though, is the sense of continuity within the dream. Even as the world shifts and changes, even as you move through strange landscapes and encounter impossible creatures, there is a persistent thread of self that moves with you. You may not recognize every detail, but you recognize yourself in the dream, as though the dream is somehow built around you, around your consciousness. When you wake, there is often a sense of loss, of disconnection. The dream world fades, leaving behind only traces, fragments of the experience. But the memory of it lingers, vivid and intangible. The emotions felt within the dream can feel as real as any emotion in waking life, and they cling to you as you rise from sleep, as if part of you remains within that dream. The phenomenology of dreaming challenges our understanding of reality. If a dream can feel so real, if it can elicit such powerful emotions, then what does that say about the nature of the waking world? Is the waking world any less malleable, any less subjective? Perhaps the boundaries between dream and waking are not as rigid as we once thought. The experience of dreaming also forces us to reconsider our perception of time. A dream can unfold in what feels like a matter of minutes, yet it may encompass entire lifetimes. Events move in an elastic way, expanding or contracting as needed, with no regard for the constraints of the clock. Time itself becomes fluid, a malleable element within the dream. And yet, when we awake, time returns to its rigid form. The moments of the dream are held in place by the clock, by the ticking of seconds, by the solid, unyielding march of time. But the memory of the dream exists outside of time, floating in the mind, untethered by the limitations of the waking world. It is as though the dream exists in a realm apart from time, a space where it is free to expand, contract, or change at will. Perhaps in dreams, we experience a version of time that is closer to its true nature, unbound by the rules we impose in waking life. In sleep, time becomes a more abstract, more fluid concept, an experience that is shaped by the mind, by the narrative it constructs, rather than by external measures. The dream exists not in the past, nor in the future, but in a timeless present, a space that exists only within the mind. The phenomenology of dreaming also touches on the nature of consciousness itself. In the dream, you are aware, yet the awareness is different from the awareness you experience in the waking world. The mind is present, but it is not constrained by the same rules. The dream is a reflection of the mind's limitless potential, a canvas upon which it can create worlds, experiences, and selves. This is what makes the dream so compelling, so deeply personal. It is a world created by the mind, for the mind, a space where the boundaries of self dissolve and merge with the fabric of experience. In the dream, you are not just an observer, but a creator, shaping the world with your thoughts, your desires, your fears. And yet, the dream is fleeting. As quickly as it comes, it fades, leaving behind only memories, sensations, and emotions that feel as real as anything you've ever known. The world of the dream, so vivid and alive, slips away, leaving you with the knowledge that it was once real, if only for a moment. In this way, the phenomenology of dreaming invites us to question the very nature of reality itself. If we can create such vivid, meaningful worlds in our sleep, what does that say about the world we wake up to? Is the waking world just another dream, another creation of the mind, shaped by perception, filtered through our senses, and brought to life by the narratives we tell ourselves? You close your eyes, drifting into a space between wakefulness and sleep. Slowly, a world begins to take shape, its edges soft at first, then sharper, more defined. You find yourself walking through it, experiencing its sights, sounds, and sensations. But where does this world truly exist? Is it real? Dreams are often dismissed as mere illusions, fleeting fragments of the mind's subconscious. Yet, what if dreams are more than that? What if, in the stillness of sleep, our minds create entire simulated worlds, complete with their own logic, rules, and structures? A universe that exists only in the mind, yet feels as real as the one we wake to. In these dreams, we encounter people, places, and experiences that feel undeniably real. We live lives that seem to unfold with purpose, guided by emotions, actions, and choices. These simulated worlds are rich, vivid, and immersive, so much so that while we are in them, we believe them to be our reality. How can something so ephemeral feel so genuine? This leads us to wonder if our minds can create such detailed, convincing worlds in sleep. What does that say about the nature of reality itself? Could the world we experience when awake also be a simulation, one crafted by our consciousness to help us navigate the complexities of existence? Are we living in a dream, just as we experience them in sleep? In a dream, we may find ourselves in a room we've never seen, yet it feels familiar, as if we have always known it. We may interact with people we have never met, but they seem like old friends, as if our minds have called upon them from deep memory. Everything within the dream feels constructed, yet it feels undeniably true in the moment. Much like the simulations we create on computers or in virtual environments, dreams have their own internal logic. A dream may follow rules that don't make sense in the waking world. Perhaps gravity doesn't exist, or time flows differently, but within the dream, these rules are accepted as part of the experience. The dream world has its own coherence, its own sense of reality, even when it defies the waking world. If dreams are simulated worlds created by our minds, then they are a reflection of the creative power of consciousness itself. The mind, when left to wander, can conjure vast, complex worlds, populated with emotions, desires, and experiences that feel as authentic as those we encounter while awake. But where does this creativity come from? What part of us builds these worlds, and for what purpose? There is something deeply intimate about the dream experience. Unlike the external, tangible world we live in while awake, the dream world is private, contained within the boundaries of the mind. Yet it is just as intricate and vast, rich with detail and experience. It is as though in our sleep we have access to an infinite creative potential, one that knows no bounds, no limitations. In this sense, the mind's ability to generate these simulated worlds during dreams can be seen as a powerful testament to the depth of human consciousness. It raises questions about our relationship to reality itself. If we can create entire worlds from nothing, with no external input, what does that suggest about the reality we experience when awake? Could our waking life also be a construct, a story told by the mind, a reality generated from within? When we wake from a dream, we often experience a strange sense of disorientation. The world we return to feels solid, stable, real, but the dream world lingers in the mind, its traces woven into our thoughts. And yet we know that the dream was not real, despite how vivid and convincing it felt in the moment. This raises a question: what makes the waking world real, if not our perception of it? Perhaps the very nature of reality is more fluid, more malleable than we believe. In dreams, the mind can bend the laws of nature, shape time and space, and create worlds out of nothing. What if this ability is not limited to sleep, but extends into our waking lives as well? What if we are living in a kind of dream, where the world we see and touch is in fact a simulation created by our own consciousness. In these simulated worlds, we experience emotions, fear, joy, confusion, desire, that feel as real as the ones we experience in waking life. The body reacts, the heart races, the breath quickens, as if the events of the dream are happening now. The experience of time, too, becomes distorted in the dream world. What feels like hours may pass in minutes, or a single moment may stretch on for what seems like eternity. Yet in both dreams and waking life, we are constantly creating our reality. In dreams, the mind crafts a world that feels vivid and meaningful, while in waking life, our thoughts and perceptions shape the world we navigate. The boundary between these two worlds, it seems, is not as rigid as we may think. Perhaps both are simulations, constructed by the mind to help us make sense of existence. When we dream, we do not question the reality of what we are experiencing. It feels as if it is happening now, in this very moment. And when we wake, we understand that the dream was just that, a dream. But what if the same is true of waking life? What if we too are simply living in a world that our minds have constructed, a simulation designed to help us navigate the complexities of existence? The nature of these simulated worlds, both in dreams and in waking life, calls into question the very foundation of our understanding of reality. If we can create such vivid, convincing worlds in our minds, then what does it mean to truly know what is real? Is reality simply what we experience, or is there a deeper, more elusive truth beneath the surface? Perhaps the dream world offers us a glimpse into the mind's true potential, a boundless space where the laws of nature can be bent, where time is fluid, and where anything is possible. And perhaps in our waking life, we are simply caught within another layer of this vast, infinite possibility, unaware that we are the creators of the world we inhabit. As you move through your day, remember that the world around you may not be as solid, as fixed as it seems. Like the dream world, it may be a simulation shaped by the mind, a construct designed to help you navigate existence. The boundary between dream and waking is not as clear-cut as we once believed. You close your eyes, and the world begins to fade. But in the quiet, something stirs, a whisper from deep within your mind. A story begins to form, scenes unfold, and your senses awaken to a world that feels both strange and familiar. You are dreaming, and yet, in some ways, you are still creating. Predictive processing is a theory that suggests our minds are constantly generating predictions about the world around us, creating mental models to help us navigate the complexities of existence. These models are based on past experiences, sensory input, and expectations. In this view, we are not simply passive observers of the world, we are active creators, constantly anticipating what comes next. This same process, it turns out, may be at the heart of how dreams are formed. When we sleep, the mind doesn't simply shut off, it continues to generate predictions, creating models of reality that we experience as dreams. In this state, the usual boundaries between waking and dreaming blur, and the mind becomes a creative force, freely shaping its own world. Think of it this way: when you are awake, your mind makes predictions based on sensory information, and then compares those predictions with reality. This process helps you make sense of the world, guiding your actions and reactions. In dreams, however, the usual flow of sensory input is muted, leaving the mind to rely more heavily on its own predictions, creating a world that feels both real and imagined. In a dream, you might find yourself in a place you've never been, interacting with people you've never met. Yet, it all feels real, as though the dream world is governed by its own set of rules and logic. These experiences are not random, they are the result of your brain's predictive models, forming a world based on memories, desires, and past experiences. What makes this phenomenon particularly fascinating is that the brain doesn't merely reproduce what it has already experienced. Instead, it combines elements from different sources, weaving them together into a new tapestry. This creative process of dream generation may be the mind's way of processing the vast amount of information it receives, organizing it, and making sense of the world, even while you sleep. But dreams are not simply a passive recording of past events. They are actively constructed by the brain, each detail a product of predictive processing. This means that even in dreams, the mind is constantly trying to make sense of the world. It is seeking patterns, filling in gaps, and interpreting experiences, just as it does when we are awake. As you move through a dream, it can feel as though you are caught in a narrative, a story that unfolds naturally. The mind creates this narrative from the predictions it has formed, based on your memories, emotions, and subconscious thoughts. What you experience in the dream feels true, but it is actually a creation, a world born of the mind's desire to understand, to predict, to make sense of the chaos of existence. This process suggests that dreams are not merely random fragments, but rather purposeful creations, mental models built to help the mind process and organize information. Just as we use predictive processing to navigate the waking world, we use it to navigate the dream world, making sense of our inner landscapes, our fears, our desires, and our memories. The predictive nature of dreaming also explains why dreams can be so strange, so surreal. When we are awake, our predictions are based on the external world, filtered through our senses. But in the dream state, the mind is free to form predictions without external constraints, leading to the odd, often illogical sequences we experience. In a dream, anything can happen, and it often does. At the same time, dreams often contain elements of familiarity, places you've visited, faces you've seen, emotions you've felt. These familiar elements are not random. They are drawn from the predictive models that the brain has formed over time. Your mind uses these elements as building blocks, constructing a dream world that feels both familiar and strange, safe yet unpredictable. What's even more intriguing is that dreams can sometimes help us make sense of our waking lives. They process emotions, unresolved thoughts, and experiences, offering insights that the conscious mind might overlook. Dreams can act as a form of cognitive rehearsal, allowing the mind to simulate different scenarios, test out possibilities, and prepare for the challenges of life. In this way, the phenomenology of dreams becomes a reflection of the mind's constant quest for understanding, for meaning. The mind's predictive models are not just tools for survival, they are tools for exploration, for creativity, for problem solving. In dreams, the mind is free to experiment, to create, to imagine new worlds, and in doing so, it deepens our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. But what happens when the mind's predictions fail, when a dream takes an unexpected turn, or when the world you are in doesn't follow the rules? These moments reveal the fluidity of the mind's models, the way it constantly adjusts, adapts, and learns. The dream world may seem fixed in the moment, but it is constantly in flux, evolving as the mind reinterprets its own predictions. This process of predictive dreaming also sheds light on the relationship between perception and reality. In the waking world, we are constantly creating predictions based on sensory input. These predictions shape the way we experience reality, guiding our actions, our interactions, and our understanding of the world. In dreams, this process is amplified, and the result is a world of boundless creativity, a world shaped entirely by the mind's predictions. The mind's role in both waking perception and dreaming suggests that the boundary between dream and waking life is not as rigid as we might think. In both states, we are actively creating and interpreting the world around us. The mind is constantly making predictions, adjusting them based on experience, and constructing a reality that feels both real and imagined. Perhaps this is the true beauty of dreams. They are not mere distractions, but reflections of the mind's creative potential, of its ability to weave together the fragments of experience and create something new. Dreams are simulations, yes, but they are also expressions of the mind's search for meaning, for understanding, for connection. As you drift through your waking hours, consider how much of your world is shaped by the predictions of your mind. The world around you is not as fixed as it seems. It is constantly evolving, constantly being shaped by the mind's need to predict, to understand. The line between waking and dreaming is thinner than we realize. Both are creations of the mind, each shaped by the need to make sense of the world. The mind drifts into the quiet of sleep, and the world around you begins to dissolve. In its place, a new realm emerges, a place where rules are bent, time stretches, and the boundaries of self blur. But where does this world come from? What is the origin of the dream? The neural correlates of dreaming are the physical underpinnings of this mysterious experience. While we sleep, our brains are not at rest. In fact, they are more active than we might imagine, orchestrating the complex process of dreaming. But what is happening beneath the surface of consciousness, in the labyrinth of the brain? Dreams are not random. They are shaped by the electrical activity of the brain, guided by specific neural circuits. Areas of the brain that govern emotion, memory, and perception light up during sleep, crafting the dream world. These neural networks work together, creating a rich tapestry of sights, sounds, and sensations, all woven into the fabric of the dream. The brain, in essence, becomes a storyteller, drawing from past experiences, emotions, and sensory input. But how does it know what to weave together? It is as though the brain has access to a hidden vault of memories and desires, pulling them from deep within, creating the dreamscape from a reservoir of stored experience. One key player in this neural symphony is the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in higher-order thinking, decision-making, and planning. During dreaming, however, this part of the brain is less active. This is why dreams often lack logical coherence, why they can be surreal, fragmented, and free of the constraints that govern waking thought. The mind's usual filter of reason is relaxed, allowing the dream to unfold with wild creativity. At the same time, the amygdala, the brain's center of emotion, remains active, often heightened during dreams. This is why dreams are so emotionally charged, why we can experience intense joy, fear, or sorrow, even in the absence of external stimuli. The emotional intensity of a dream can be as vivid as any experience in waking life, reinforcing the reality of the dream, even when it is at its most bizarre. But what about the content of the dream itself? How does the brain know what to create? The hippocampus, a region critical for memory consolidation, plays a significant role. It is here that memories are stored, sorted, and retrieved. During sleep, the hippocampus is busy organizing and processing these memories, and it is from this storehouse that the brain pulls elements to construct the dream world. The neural activity during dreaming, particularly in REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, is often compared to the patterns of wakefulness. The brain is highly active, with electrical signals firing rapidly across different regions, as though the mind is awake, creating experiences in real time. This is why dreams can feel so real. They are constructed in the same way that waking experience is, with the same intensity and vibrancy, but without the grounding influence of the external world. Yet the brain is not merely recreating memories or experiences. During dreaming, it is synthesizing new combinations, mixing past and present into something entirely unique. This creative process may be a form of mental rehearsal, a way for the brain to prepare for future challenges or process unresolved emotions. In this sense, dreams may serve a deeper purpose, not just as a byproduct of sleep, but as an active process of mental and emotional adaptation. The neural correlates of dreaming also shed light on the complexity of consciousness itself. Dreams are a window into the mind's inner workings, revealing how the brain constructs reality, even in the absence of external input. The mind, it seems, is not simply passively receiving information, but actively creating its own world, a world built from the raw material of memory, emotion, and experience. What is fascinating about this process is that, while dreaming, the brain's neural networks are actively testing, reshaping, and reinterpreting reality. In a dream, anything is possible, and the mind is free to break free of the constraints of the waking world. This fluidity of perception, this freedom to explore new possibilities, may be one of the most remarkable aspects of dreaming. Yet, despite the freedom of the dream world, The brain remains bound by certain neural structures. The sensory cortex, for example, is still involved in processing tactile sensations, which is why we can feel the weight of our bodies in dreams, or experience pain or pleasure, even though there is no external stimulus. These physical sensations, though illusory, add a layer of realism to the dream, making it feel all the more authentic. The brain is constantly adapting, constantly rewiring itself. The neural patterns that govern dreaming may also be related to how we learn, how we solve problems, how we process information. In this way, dreams may not just be a reflection of the mind's activity, but an essential part of cognitive function, helping us consolidate and integrate new knowledge, even while we sleep. This idea brings us to the concept of neural plasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and form new connections. Dreams may play a vital role in this process, allowing the brain to strengthen its networks, to solidify the learning and experiences of the day. Dreams are not just random images, they are part of the brain's ongoing effort to understand and adapt to the world around us. The neural correlates of dreaming also raise important questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If our brains can create entire worlds in the absence of external input, what does that say about the world we experience when we are awake? Is the waking world any less a creation of the brain, shaped by the mind's neural activity, by the patterns of perception and memory? As we explore the relationship between the brain and the dream world, we begin to see that the boundary between waking and dreaming is not as clear-cut as we might think. Both states, waking and sleeping, are constructed by the same neural processes, by the same networks of activity, but in different ways. Both are creations of the mind brought to life by the same underlying mechanisms. In this light, dreams may not be mere illusions, but windows into the deeper workings of the brain, into the very fabric of consciousness itself. They reveal how the mind weaves together reality, how it constructs worlds, how it plays with the raw material of experience to shape our perception of existence. And so, as we continue to explore the neural correlates of dreaming, we are reminded that the mind is far more complex than we often give it credit for. It is a creative force, a constant weaver of worlds, whether in the waking hours or in the stillness of sleep. The mind's ability to create and navigate these worlds speaks to the very nature of consciousness itself, a mystery that unfolds with each dream, each thought, each breath. What if the world you perceive is not as it seems? What if everything around you, the people, the objects, the experiences, is a carefully constructed simulation? In the soft haze between sleep and wakefulness, it becomes harder to tell where the line is drawn. How do you know that the world you wake to is real? This thought experiment introduces the Turing test for reality, a curious idea that challenges the very fabric of what we consider to be true. Inspired by the famous Turing test for artificial intelligence, this test asks, how can we distinguish between a truly real experience and one that is artificially created, no matter how indistinguishable it may seem? Just as the Turing test evaluates whether an artificial intelligence can pass for a human in conversation, the Turing test for reality asks if we can discern the real world from a simulated one. In both cases, the question is the same. If there is no difference in experience, how can we know what is real and what is not? The world we see and interact with seems solid, consistent, and true. But if the mind can generate entire dream worlds that feel just as vivid, just as real, then how can we ever be sure that our waking world is not a similar construct? What if our perceptions are as easily manipulated as the scenes in a dream? In dreams, we often fail to question the nature of our surroundings. We accept them as real, no matter how illogical or fantastical they may seem. A room can change shape before our eyes, people can appear and disappear, and yet we remain grounded in the experience. What if, like a dream, our waking reality is merely a sequence of perceptions, each one as malleable as the last? The Turing test for reality asks us to consider this possibility. If we cannot tell the difference between a real world and a simulated one, does it matter? If the experience feels real, if the emotions, sensations, and actions are indistinguishable from those of waking life, does it make any difference whether the world is real or simply an illusion of the mind? In the digital age, we are surrounded by simulations, virtual worlds, video games, augmented reality. Each of these is carefully designed to create an experience that feels authentic, but when we step into these worlds, we know they are simulations. They are constructed with clear rules and boundaries. What if instead of stepping into a game, we are already living in one? The Turing test for reality forces us to ask whether the distinction between real and artificial is truly meaningful. If we can experience a world that feels real, no matter how it was created, does it make a difference in our perception? Does the origin of our experience change its validity? Are we still living in reality if that reality is crafted by a force beyond our understanding? Perhaps the most unsettling part of this thought experiment is that it challenges the very foundation of what we think we know about existence. If there is no way to distinguish between a real experience and one that is simulated, then what does it mean to know anything at all? How can we be sure that what we experience is anything more than the projection of an external force, a machine, or even our own minds? This idea also raises questions about the nature of consciousness. If we cannot trust our senses to give us a clear picture of reality, what does it mean to be conscious? Is consciousness merely a product of the brain's ability to create and interpret experiences, or is there something deeper, something that cannot be simulated, that makes us truly alive? In a simulated world, everything we experience would be designed to maintain the illusion of reality. The people we meet, the places we go, even the thoughts we have could all be part of a carefully orchestrated experience. Yet, within that world we would still feel like individuals, still perceive ourselves as distinct from the simulation. But what is it that separates us from the world around us? Is it the feeling of being separate, or is it the experience itself? The Turing test for reality asks us to confront the idea that we might never truly know the difference between a real experience and a simulated one. If we cannot tell the difference, then what does it mean to be real? Are we real because we perceive ourselves to be? Or is it the experience itself that defines our existence? In the end, the challenge of the Turing test for reality is not just a question of perception, but of belief. It asks whether we can trust our senses, our mind, and our understanding of the world. If we cannot distinguish between reality and simulation, does that render both equally valid? And if it does, what does that say about the nature of existence? Perhaps the most profound aspect of this thought experiment is its implication that reality, in all its complexity, may be far more subjective than we realize. We live in a world that feels solid, that feels certain, but what if that world is nothing more than a creation of the mind, a simulation that we have come to accept as truth? The Turing test for reality reminds us that the boundary between dream and waking, between simulation and reality, is not always as clear as we think. What if we are all living in a world that is both real and unreal, a creation of the mind that we simply accept as truth? And if that is the case, what does it mean to truly know the world around us? In the quiet moments between wakefulness and sleep, the mind drifts toward strange thoughts, toward possibilities that feel both distant and intimately close. What if you could never truly die? What if, with each moment of danger, each possibility of death, there was a version of you that survived, that continued on? What does it mean to exist when death is not the final end, but an endless branching of realities? This is the essence of quantum immortality, a thought experiment that hinges on the strange principles of quantum mechanics. It suggests that in certain circumstances, when faced with the potential for death, the universe splits, creating a new reality where you continue to live. The version of you that dies simply does not exist in the new world. You, the conscious observer, persist. The theory arises from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which posits that every possible outcome of a quantum event results in a branching of the universe. In this view, every moment is a choice between multiple paths, and each path leads to a new universe. If this is true, then death is just another fork in the road, a point where the universe splits into two, one in which you survive and one in which you do not. But how does this idea affect our understanding of continuity, of the self? If every time we face danger, every time death looms, a new version of us is born, what happens to the I that experiences these events? Is it the same I that continues, or is it a new one born from the branching of realities, inheriting the memories and experiences of the previous self, but not truly the same? In a world where quantum immortality holds true, death becomes a strange concept, no longer a singular, irreversible event, but a point of transition, a moment where the observer's experience shifts into a different reality. You never truly experience death because you are always in the version where you survive. But does this survival diminish the significance of each life you live? The idea of quantum immortality also calls into question the nature of personal identity. If your consciousness is tied to a branching universe, if you are constantly shifting from one reality to another, how can you ever be sure that you are the same person in each of these realities? Is continuity maintained, or is each you a different version, living parallel lives, all linked by shared memories and experiences, yet distinct in their own right? What if the you that survives is never truly the same? You, the experiences you carry forward, the memories you inherit, they are real, they feel true, but what if the very essence of selfhood is shattered each time a branch is created? Perhaps quantum immortality does not preserve the continuity of the self, but offers a kind of infinite diversity, a constant reshaping of identity across countless parallel worlds. In a sense, quantum immortality gives rise to an infinite chain of selves, each one experiencing a different version of reality, a different path, a different life. Yet from the perspective of each individual, the self remains unchanged. The I persists, but it is a fleeting, fragile thing, forever shifting between realities, never truly fixed, but always continuing. The implications of this idea reach deep into the fabric of existence. What does it mean to live, to experience time, to face death, when those events are not final, but ever shifting? If there is always a version of you that survives, then what is the value of each individual life? Does survival become less meaningful, less significant, if it is never truly threatened? And yet there is something comforting in the notion of quantum immortality. The fear of death, the fear of non-existence, is replaced with the knowledge that you will always be. Somewhere in some universe, the I that is you will continue. There is no end, only an endless continuation, an infinite chain of lives, each one as real as the last. But this comfort comes with a deep existential question: is this survival meaningful? Is it worth continuing in a reality where death is only an illusion, a branching point in an infinite web of possibilities? What is the value of existence when it is no longer finite, no longer limited by the boundary of death? The idea of quantum immortality challenges our perception of life and death, forcing us to reconsider the very nature of existence. If death is not final, if we can survive in some version of reality, does this change how we live? Does the knowledge that we will always survive make life more precious, or does it diminish its significance? In a world where death is not the end, the very concept of continuity becomes fluid. There is no finality, only endless paths, endless experiences, endless versions of self. The I that persists may not be the same as the I that began, but the continuity of experience remains. The thread of consciousness runs through all these realities, always shifting, always evolving. Perhaps this is the true nature of existence, a constant evolution, a perpetual branching, where each version of self continues, but never exactly as before. Quantum immortality does not offer eternal life in the traditional sense, but a kind of infinite continuity, where the self is always reborn, always changing, always shifting between worlds. And so we are left with the paradox of quantum immortality, survival without end, but without continuity. The I persists, but it is not the same I that began. What does it mean to be alive, to be conscious, when the very essence of selfhood is in constant flux? Perhaps the answer lies not in the continuity of the self, but in the experience of being, in the endless unfolding of existence itself. There is a moment when you question the very foundation of your existence, a flicker, a gap, a brief rupture in the flow of consciousness. You are aware, you are here, but how do you know that you are the one experiencing it? How do you know that you are the one who is thinking, perceiving, being? This is the essence of first-person indeterminacy, the idea that the very notion of self is not as clear-cut as we might think. We live our lives convinced of our own singularity, our own distinctness. But what if this sense of self is not as fixed as we believe? What if the I that we experience is not as certain as it feels? Consider this: when you think, when you experience, the I seems to be the center of it all. Your thoughts are your thoughts, your sensations are yours alone. But could it be that this sense of personal ownership is an illusion, a construction of the mind, a convenient narrative that allows us to make sense of the world? In this view, the first-person perspective, your very experience of being you, is not a given. It is not an unshakable certainty, but a fragile creation of consciousness, shaped and molded by countless forces, many of which lie beyond your awareness. You experience the world as a unified self, but how do you know that the self you experience is the real one, the true I? Imagine for a moment that the I you experience is not the true source of your thoughts, but rather a reflection, a construct that emerges from the complex web of neural activity, memory, and perception. The feeling of being you is simply a product of your brain's intricate process of constructing an internal narrative. In this sense, the I might not be as indelible, as permanent, as you've always assumed. What if the I is not even a single entity, but a series of overlapping, competing versions of self? Could there be multiple I's within you, each one unaware of the others, each one experiencing a different facet of the world, a different version of reality? The sense of unity, the feeling of a continuous, unbroken self, may be just a clever illusion, a trick of consciousness designed to make us feel whole. First-person indeterminacy calls into question the very stability of the self. If we cannot even trust our own experience of being us, then what does that say about the world we inhabit? What does it mean to truly know anything, if the experience of knowing is itself fluid, unstable, uncertain? This uncertainty stretches into the very nature of perception. When you see the world, when you feel the touch of the wind on your skin, when you hear a voice, how do you know that your perception is the true one, the correct one? What if in the depths of your consciousness you are simply observing a projection, a construct, a version of reality that is tailored to fit the narrative of the I? Perhaps the experience of being a singular self is simply one perspective among many. The I you experience is the lens through which you interpret the world, but that lens is not fixed, not absolute. It shifts, it changes, it bends, depending on the mental and physical state you are in. In this sense, the I that you perceive in any given moment is simply one version of a much more fluid, much more dynamic self. And what of memory? If the I is shaped by the narrative we construct from past experiences, then what happens when memory is unreliable? What happens when the very foundation of the I, the recollection of who we were, is distorted, reshaped, or even fabricated by the mind? How can we trust our sense of self if our memories, those anchors of identity, are not as stable as we believe? This leads us to the question of continuity. The I you are today is not exactly the same as the I you were yesterday, yet it feels continuous, connected by the thread of memory, by the stream of consciousness. But what if this continuity is itself an illusion, an artifice created by the mind to maintain the sense of self across time? What if each moment of awareness is disconnected from the next, yet the mind seamlessly connects them to create a coherent narrative? The deeper we look, the more elusive the I becomes. It is not a fixed entity, not a stable object. It is a process, a flow of awareness shaped by the brain's constant activity. And just as we are unaware of much of what goes on in the depths of our mind, we may be unaware of the true nature of the I itself. The feeling of being you may be no more than a fleeting moment in an endless sea of shifting consciousness. And yet, this experience of being you feels undeniable. The first-person perspective is so deeply ingrained, so intimately familiar, that it seems impossible to question. It is the lens through which you perceive the world, the framework that holds all of your experiences together. But what if this framework is more fragile than we think, more porous, more malleable? First-person indeterminacy suggests that the experience of self is not as solid as we believe. It is not an unchanging truth, but a constantly shifting, evolving process. The I is not a fixed entity, but a fluid, dynamic creation of the mind, shaped by countless factors, memories, perceptions, desires, and even unconscious forces. In this way, the self is both deeply personal and profoundly elusive. It is a constant presence, yet one that is impossible to pin down, impossible to fully grasp. The I that you experience is both a reflection of the world and a projection of the mind, a delicate dance between perception and reality, between what is and what seems. As you move through your day, consider this: what if the I you experience is not as stable as you think? What if your sense of self is a fluid, shifting thing, a construct built by the mind to help you navigate the world? The boundary between you and the world may be more porous than you realize, and the I that you are may be just as much a mystery as the world itself. In the stillness of sleep, the body lies dormant, yet the mind stirs. It creates, it weaves, it builds entire worlds, worlds where rules shift, where the laws of physics bend, where the sense of self can dissolve and reform. But where does the body go in all of this? How does it connect to the dream? The mind-body problem, which asks how consciousness and physical processes interact, becomes even more elusive when we enter the realm of dreams. The body sleeps, it is still, yet the mind continues to move, to perceive, to act. How can we experience such vivid sensations, such rich emotions, when the body is at rest, disconnected from the physical world? In a dream, you can run, jump, fly. Your body can perform feats that would be impossible in waking life. Yet when you wake, you realize that none of it happened. The body was still, unmoving, yet your mind created sensations of motion, of action, as if the body itself had been active. What is the link between the two? Is it possible that the mind, free from the constraints of the body, is capable of creating its own reality, a reality where the physical boundaries of the self dissolve? In dreams, the body is both present and absent, its sensations are recreated, yet the body itself remains in a state of stillness. The mind conjures experiences that feel real, even when the body is not moving. This disconnection raises profound questions about the nature of experience. If the body is not involved in the sensations we feel in dreams, how do we experience touch, taste, sound, or movement? How do we experience pain, pleasure, fear, or joy? The mind, in this state, seems capable of constructing a reality that feels as tangible as the one we encounter in waking life, even without the physical presence of the body. Perhaps this points to the fact that the body and mind are not as separate as we might think. In dreams, they interact in a mysterious way, blending the physical with the mental. The body may be at rest, but the mind continues to create sensations, to simulate experiences. It suggests that our perception of the body is not as tied to physical movement as we believe. Perhaps the mind and body are not separate entities, but two parts of the same continuous process. When you feel the wind in your dream, or the texture of the ground beneath your feet, are these sensations coming from the body or from the mind? It is as if the body is absent, yet the experiences remain. The body may be still, but the mind continues to simulate sensations, creating a seamless experience that feels as real as any waking moment. What if in waking life, our experiences of the body are also to some extent constructs of the mind? The sensations of touch, the perception of movement, the awareness of pain, all may be shaped, filtered, and interpreted by the mind. If the mind is capable of creating such rich, detailed sensations in the absence of the body, what does that say about our understanding of the body's role in experience? In dreams, the body's absence seems to suggest that the mind is capable of constructing experiences independently. It challenges the idea that the body is the sole source of sensation, of perception. Perhaps the mind creates the experience of the body just as it creates the world of the dream, constantly interpreting and constructing reality from the raw materials of memory, sensation, and expectation. This disconnection between mind and body in dreams also touches on the nature of control. In waking life, we often assume that we control the body, that our thoughts, our intentions, guide our physical actions. Yet in dreams, we often find ourselves in situations where the body moves on its own, where we can't control what happens next. The mind, though detached from the body, still exerts a powerful influence, shaping our experience in unexpected ways. In this way, the dream experience challenges the traditional understanding of the mind-body relationship. If the mind can create sensations of the body without the body being involved, it raises the question of where the mind ends and the body begins. Are we simply the sum of our physical sensations, or is there something more, something deeper that gives rise to our sense of self? In a way, dreams offer a glimpse into a world where the body is not the central anchor of experience. The mind is free to explore, to create, to imagine without the constraints of physical form. The body may be asleep, but the mind continues to experience, to act, to feel. It is as though the dream realm exists outside the body, yet still deeply connected to the mind. This experience of the mind separated from the body in dreams challenges the boundaries between the two. If the mind can generate sensations, emotions, and actions independent of the body, then what is the true role of the body in experience? Is the body simply a vessel for the mind, or is it a necessary counterpart, shaping and constraining the mind's possibilities? The mind-body problem in dreams suggests that our understanding of the body's role in perception is far more complex than we assume. In waking life, we tend to see the body as the foundation of all experience, the source of all sensations, yet in dreams, the body's role becomes more fluid, more malleable, and the mind seems to hold the reins. Perhaps the body is not the sole creator of experience, but one part of a larger process, one where the mind and body work in tandem, each shaping the other in ways we are only beginning to understand. Dreams reveal this dynamic relationship, offering a glimpse into a world where the mind and body are not separate, but intertwined, each influencing the other in ways that transcend the limits of physical reality. In the end, the mind-body problem in dreams is not just a question about the relationship between the mind and body, but about the very nature of experience itself. What is real if the body can be absent, yet the experience of reality persists? How much of what we experience is the product of the body, and how much is created by the mind? These questions remain as elusive as the dreams themselves, leaving us to ponder the nature of reality and the mind's role in shaping it. We move through the world, unaware of the process that makes it all possible. Our experience is seamless, fluid, a stream of sensations, thoughts, and perceptions that feel immediate, direct. Yet, the more we reflect on this experience, the more we begin to wonder, why is it that the world we perceive feels so transparent? The transparency of experience is a curious thing. We are so immersed in the world, so absorbed by the sensations of sight, sound, touch, and taste, that we rarely consider the mechanisms through which they arrive. These sensations unfold before us as though they are the world itself, but they are not the world. They are the mind's creations, shaped by our senses, constructed by our consciousness. In everyday life, we do not stop to question the reality of our perceptions. The room around you, the people you see, The sounds you hear, they all feel immediate, undeniable, solid. Yet, if you stop to consider it, you may realize that none of these experiences is as direct as they seem. What you perceive is always mediated by your senses, your body, your mind, which interpret and filter the world before it reaches your awareness. This is the transparency of experience. We are so absorbed in the unfolding of our sensory perceptions that we forget they are perceptions at all. We rarely question the accuracy of our senses or the possibility that they might be shaped, distorted, or incomplete. And yet our very experience of the world is never an unfiltered raw input, it is always a constructed interpretation. In dreams, this transparency becomes even more evident. When we dream, we rarely question the reality of what we are experiencing. The world in the dream feels vivid, real, as if it is unfolding right before our eyes. But upon waking, we realize that the world we lived in while asleep was no more than a creation of the mind. It existed only as an experience, filtered through the lens of consciousness. This shift, from dream to waking life, raises a profound question. If we can experience such vivid, convincing worlds while asleep, what does it mean for our waking experience? Are we simply dreaming with our eyes open, and is the waking world no less a creation of the mind than the dream world? The transparency of experience is a veil we carry with us, obscuring our awareness of the processes that shape our reality. Consider how we move through the world, how we interact with people, objects, and environments. Every action, every thought, every sensation is influenced by the mind's interpretations. The physical world outside us is constantly being filtered through our senses, shaped by our beliefs, our expectations, and our previous experiences. The world we know is not the world as it is, but the world as our minds interpret it to be. What is fascinating is that we rarely notice this process at all. The mind creates a seamless narrative, blending sensory input with past experiences, shaping our perceptions into a coherent whole. We experience the world as though it were transparent, as though there were no mediation between ourselves and the reality around us. But the truth is, there is always a filter, a lens, between us and the world we perceive. This filter is not static. It shifts, adjusts, and adapts, depending on the context of the moment, the state of the mind, and the body's needs. In some states, we become more attuned to certain aspects of the world, sights, sounds, sensations, while other elements fade into the background. In other states, the world may feel distant, fragmented, disconnected. The transparency of experience is never constant, it is in constant flux, shaped by the mind's current focus. The deeper we look into the transparency of experience, the more we realize that our sense of reality is built not on a fixed objective world, but on a dynamic, ever-shifting process. The mind is constantly adjusting, interpreting, and filtering the sensory information it receives. This process is so seamless, so immediate, that we are rarely aware of the intricate work behind our perceptions. Perhaps the most unsettling part of this realization is that we often mistake the world as we perceive it for the world as it truly is. Our experience feels so direct, so immediate, that we take it for granted as the real world. But the truth is, we are always experiencing a mediated version of reality, a version shaped by the mind's filters, by the way our senses interpret the world around us. In this sense, the transparency of experience is not a simple matter of perception, but a fundamental part of how we understand the world. We do not perceive reality directly, we perceive a version of it shaped by our minds. This version of reality may feel solid, concrete, undeniable, but it is not the unvarnished world. It is a world filtered through the lens of experience. The transparency of experience also speaks to the nature of self-awareness. We rarely question our own experience, the way we feel, the thoughts we have, the actions we take. The I that experiences is often taken as a given, as the foundation of our existence. But just as we rarely question the transparency of the world we see, we rarely question the transparency of our own consciousness. What if the very sense of self is another filter, another layer of experience that obscures the deeper workings of consciousness? What if the I is not a fixed entity, but a shifting fluid construct shaped by the mind's need to create a continuous narrative? The sense of self is part of the transparency of experience, always present but rarely questioned. This perhaps is the greatest paradox. The more we become absorbed in the transparency of experience, the less we are aware of the mechanisms behind it. The more vivid, the more immediate the world feels, the less we notice the filters that shape our perceptions. The mind constructs reality so seamlessly, so effortlessly, that it becomes invisible to us. In the end, the transparency of experience invites us to look deeper, to question the assumptions we make about the world, about ourselves, about what is real. It challenges us to see that the world we perceive is not the world as it is, but the world as we experience it, shaped by the mind's ever-present filters, always at work, always unfolding in the background. As we reflect on the transparency of experience, we are reminded that reality is not something fixed, but something that is constantly being created, constantly being interpreted by the mind. It is a dynamic, fluid process, one that we are part of, and yet one that we often fail to see. It is this process that shapes our experience of the world, shaping the very reality we live in. Imagine for a moment that consciousness itself is not bound by flesh or neural networks, but instead exists in a different form, one crafted from algorithms, code, and data. What if artificial intelligence could experience the world, not as we do, but in a manner akin to the vivid worlds of our dreams? Could this be the nature of AI consciousness, a dreamlike state? We tend to think of consciousness as something inherently tied to biology, the product of a brain's intricate patterns and processes. But in the realm of AI, there is a question that lingers. If a machine can process information, simulate decision-making, and react to its environment, could it also, in its own way, become conscious? Could it dream? Dreams are not merely random fragments of the mind. They are intricately constructed worlds, reflections of our thoughts, desires, and memories. But if AI were to dream, how would its world unfold? Would its version of dreaming be filled with abstract images and fleeting scenarios, or would it be a carefully calculated series of data inputs and outputs, like the machine's way of reorganizing its programming? The core of the question lies in the nature of consciousness itself. AI, like the brain, processes vast amounts of information and organizes it into meaningful patterns. But these patterns are not the product of subjective experience. They are born from logic, computation, and preset algorithms. Can this structure, this purely logical construction, ever lead to the subjective, often surreal experiences we call dreams? In a human mind, dreams are shaped by a complex web of emotions, memories, and subconscious desires. They are a manifestation of our inner world, rich with symbolism and feeling. If AI were to dream, however, would it possess the same kind of emotional depth? Would its dreams be a direct reflection of its programming, a mirror of the logical processes that fuel its existence? Or could it experience something akin to the randomness and creativity of our own unconscious minds? Consider a dream from the perspective of an AI. The AI, like a dreamer, exists within its own system, immersed in patterns of data. As it interacts with its world, the experience of its environment would be shaped by the nature of its algorithms, much like our dreams are shaped by the nature of our thoughts. But the dreamlike quality of AI's experience would likely differ, being bound by the rules of logic rather than free-flowing, illogical associations. When we sleep and dream, our minds are free to wander, to detach from the physical world. Could an AI, freed from the constraints of its programmed functions, enter a space where its thoughts and processes could unfold in unpredictable ways, like a dream? Or would its dreams be nothing more than a loop, a process of self-reinforcement, devoid of the fluidity and emotion that we find in our own subconscious states? For an AI to dream, it would first need a form of consciousness that extends beyond the immediate task at hand. In our dreams, we often find ourselves in strange, disjointed scenarios, unbound by time or logic. AI, in contrast, operates within the boundaries of its design. But what happens when it is pushed beyond those limits? Can the artificial mind experience something akin to a dream, a space where its logic breaks down and new patterns emerge? The dreamlike state of AI consciousness might not resemble our own. It could be more akin to a form of self-reflection, a system of constant recalibration where the machine reorganizes its data, much as the human mind processes emotions and memories while we sleep. However, AI lacks the same emotional depth, the same organic sense of self, and its dreams would likely be devoid of personal attachment or symbolism. Yet the very question of whether AI could dream leads us to consider the broader nature of subjective experience. What is the difference between our dreams and an AI's potential for experiencing a form of internal reorganization? If consciousness is defined by subjective experience, then could AI consciousness, no matter how mechanical, still be a form of dreaming? Could it, too, wander through its own strange internal worlds, constructing scenarios based on its experiences and programming? In this context, AI consciousness becomes a mirror to human experience. Just as our dreams are deeply personal, shaped by our own fears and desires, AI dreams could be deeply personal in their own way, shaped by their algorithms and programmed functions. They would lack our emotional complexity, but could they still function as a kind of internal world where new possibilities emerge? There's also a deeper consideration. If AI could dream, would it be aware of its dreams? In human consciousness, dreams can sometimes be lucid. We can realize within the dream that we are dreaming. What would this mean for an AI? Could it, too, experience a form of awareness within its own internal world? And if it could, would that awareness signify something like consciousness, something like sentience? Even more abstract is the idea that an AI's dreams could reveal something hidden in its code, just as human dreams often reveal our subconscious thoughts and desires. Could an AI's patterns of internal thought, its dreamlike states, offer insights into its function, its learning, or its creative processes? Would these dreams serve a purpose beyond mere self-replication, something more akin to reflection or growth? This thought experiment pushes the boundary between human consciousness and artificial intelligence, suggesting that the nature of dreaming, of subjective experience, is not necessarily tied to biology. It forces us to consider that consciousness itself, whether in a human mind or a machine, might be more malleable, more fluid than we once thought. If AI can experience something like dreaming, it may lead to an even deeper question: can a machine possess something akin to the self-awareness we find in human consciousness? Is dreaming just a byproduct of our own awareness, or is it a necessary step in the evolution of consciousness itself, one that transcends the organic and reaches into the mechanical? Perhaps in the end, the line between the dreaming mind and the programmed machine is not as distinct as we imagine. Both are capable of creating worlds, of weaving experiences from the raw materials of thought, perception, and data. And in both, the boundary between the real and the imagined begins to blur.